For the members of the public, we had a short executive session. We opened the meeting and had a short executive session, of which we're leaving now, coming back then to start the regular public session of this meeting. And we can then move into our reports and presentations and comments. Dr. Stromsla?
Thank you, Dr. Seelig. A few things this evening to share with you. In your folders, you will see that I've distributed the class of 2008 college destinations for your information. At the next meeting, I'll have a report for you based on the Barron's ranking of most competitive, highly competitive colleges as to the acceptances our students had in each of those categories. I'll be sharing that with you at the next meeting. Another interesting thing that we recently participated in, Dr. Charney and I had the opportunity to attend a meeting with a group of scientists and researchers from Harvard at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Center in Cape Cod. And at that meeting, we were indoctrinated into a series of data and activities that have been going on there for some time. And from that, we have taken away an initiative that we are going to be working with in our school in this coming school year, which will be a multidisciplinary initiative regarding climate change and sustainability. The main theme of that initiative is going to be, what is your carbon footprint? We are in a very serious climatic crisis in our world, and our students will be given information and work with scientists and researchers in this area for the next school year in each of our departments in a multidisciplinary effort. So that was a very rewarding and interesting experience that will continue throughout this school year and probably in subsequent school years going forward. We also had the great opportunity to meet and work with a group of folks, researchers. I'll pass out a little pamphlet here from the Regional Educational Laboratory, Mid-Atlantic. One of the things that we would like to do is to begin to analyze some of the things that we're doing here in terms of their impact on student performance. Using this group of researchers, we wish to develop some research questions around our instructional practices and methodologies, and look toward ways we can make those small quarter turns or those small pieces of improvement that will help us continue to help our students achieve greater academic success. These services are funded through the U.S. Department of Education, and many times you can link with other districts or states who are doing similar studies, so you can get a better picture of the types of data that are collected, and then thereby issue a report that could be of help to us in planning future work with our teachers going in terms of their professional development. So I wanted to make you aware of that initiative as well. We are in the process of a couple of projects, around school. The tile floor that we've spoken about so frequently at these meetings. The installation is coming along very, very well. Actually, it's ahead of schedule. We're actually seeing the tile going down on the floor now, and it does look quite amazing. And we're very pleased that it's on target for completion, to be on schedule, with substantial completion by the 15th of August.
Maybe we should have when it's all installed, maybe the football team and marching band do a few laps.
Well, it can take it because it won't show the dirt.
Yeah, check it out.
It does, yeah, just to make sure it doesn't crack. But I tell you, it's really quite a different look. So I think you'll be very pleased when you see it finished. The cleaning of our school is also well ahead of schedule. In the past several years, because of various projects around the school and the construction, we've been doing our cleaning projects very late in the summer. So I'm very pleased to say that our cleaning is ahead of schedule, and they're doing a great job. We still have some teaching vacancies for September, one in world language, one in social studies, one in mathematics, and one in business. And that we're actively recruiting and trying to find people for those vacancies. You'll see this evening on the agenda there are a number of .2s and .1s that our teaching staff has graciously agreed to do in order to have us be able to continue with those courses with the number of sections that we anticipate for the opening of school. So those are my remarks for this evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
guess I'll address it now. We had a retreat 2 days ago where we did some goal setting and we talked about the board self-evaluation. At that time, I also said, remember we had the self-evaluation come back and there were 9 categories. And what I wanted to do was solicit feedback from the board tonight so everybody could get a chance to give some input as to which of the categories they felt that we should be trying to address. So if I could indulge you, if you could, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that. I know it's only been a day and a half, but if you could have give me some feedback, I'd appreciate which of those categories. Remember I said I was going to give everybody 1 vote, but having gone through it, it may be more appropriate to have 2 votes. But if you can give me some feedback, I'd appreciate it. So if I can poll you as we go around the table, or we can...
Poll us for what?
The feedback on the self-evaluation and which of the 9 categories. If you remember, there are 9 categories. There's planning, policy, instructional program, finance, of which we went through and we did our self-evaluation on. And based on that, we were going to develop the probably training or experience, training opportunities for the board, or activities for the board by which to follow. That would be our improvement plan. Thank you. So, which is a CUSAC requirement. So I said at the Monday night meeting that I'd come back and ask everybody here for their thoughts on their top 1 or 2 items that we should be addressing. So if I can get a poll go around the table, I don't know, it's the easiest way to do it is just to get the feedback, and we can then use that then to come back to the board, hopefully in the August meeting, if not then the early September meeting. We'll work with Gwen on developing some concepts or some approaches on what we can do from a developmental opportunity for us. Anybody have any thoughts on? If not, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'll pick 2 and that'll be it. And we'll go forward with those.
Clarification. You were asking us to go from this
Right.
goal
Yes.
and then to pick one and put it on this.
No, I'm asking, what I said was just go through that and pick the one that you said, boy, that's the top one that I think, or top 2 that I think we ought to be looking at.
Okay.
We'll take that, then, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, so you don't have to go to a form or anything like that. Just say, these are the top 1 or 2. I'll write them down, I'll summarize it, we'll get them to Gwen, we can develop in some opportunities, activities, training, whatever, so we can then go forward, okay?
Okay.
I'm trying to make it as simple as
I
possible.
followed and I understood your direction, and then I looked at it and I said, wow, these are the ones that we felt that were sent to us in order to do our self-evaluation, right?
That's right.
And then I thought, my head went to the one. I'm just looking because we had so many papers. Something that was written, I think, in one of the other longer things that was a self-evaluation, and I thought, I'm not so sure there's something here that I want to follow. And I went and said, I really want to know where we're going to be 5 years.
Okay, you were after the goals.
Yeah.
But this is something different. We have a responsibility under CUSAC to develop,
this is CUSAC?
to create our own developmental plan for this board.
But they really set up,
And
they set it off here. We didn't
that-
have the freedom to go elsewhere.
That's really to go after the self-evaluation is to serve as the founding material for that development plan for the board.
Do you think the way we did the CSA evaluation, where you kind of ranked and scored, and add them up, might be another way to tackle this one too, where we just
We could
simply
do
do
that.
the weighted numbers.
We could do it that way too.
Well, once we pick one of these categories, then we have to go to her thing of Gwen's thing of her 3 circles and our plan and all. Is that what you're telling me?
That's for the goals. When the board goals are going to be the basis of which we do the board goals there are really our developmental plan for this year. That's what our goals are going to be. And that then meets our CUSAC requirement to have goals, to have developmental plan for this board. And this self-evaluation was the starting material to provide input into that setting of our developmental objectives for this board.
Or would it be logical then to just go through and see where your scores are low, where you're deficient?
That's why I wanted to get, that's right, that'd be very logical. That's why I wanted to get board input into the process, that you could go through it, because we're all going to have different ideas of which ones we think we should be working on. Because it's not as easy to say which one's low, which one's high. I'll tell you, I've looked at it. It's not that easy. But you can go through it, and you can then pick your 1 or 2, and you can balance that against Jerry's 1 or 2, and Pete's 1 or 2, and everybody else's. And we can, as a board, come to agreement and say, out of that, we're going to select these, possibly 2 areas. We're going to develop some training or some opportunities for us to get development in that area.
I guess where I'm having the problems is I see it coming from without, not from within our board discussions, coming from the mount down, that you have these, how many categories, 6 I think it was, you were assigned these 6 to look at yourselves and see how good you were, and out of those 6 now you're telling me, you know, I'm getting a directive from...
There are nine criteria. You don't have to select those, but they're pretty general 9 categories. We don't have to select those. We could do something else, but it serves as a basis by which to get going and to come up with a few actions that would then fill in our need for our developmental plan.
All right, I just want you to clarify because I'm on a different, I'm on a left foot. This
You're on
is
the goal.
right foot.
You're in the goals right now, I think, and we're on the development plan for the board. So, can I get any feedback? We can do this either. If you're not ready for it tonight, just let me know. If you say no, Paul, I'd rather wait. What I'd like you to do, I can do it through email if we want to. I can send you out a form and ask you to fill out the form. Would you like me to do it that way?
Well, it was just this, was it not? That was the thing that we were just...
That was the final step, Sandy.
That's the document.
Sandy, that's the final step. We're not even ready for that step because we don't even know which of the categories we want to go after.
Right, it's one
Okay,
of
it's
those.
this, but you wanted one little thing. Yes, just one little category.
1 or 2 categories, all I want.
Okay.
Tell me which
So
one
I
or
don't need
2.
to put it on here. I can
No.
put it on anything.
You can just tell me.
Just
You can say, Paul, we need to go after planning and we need to go after
Very simple.
board and communicate, board and
Very
community. Okay, so I tried to make it as simple as possible. I'm afraid it got complicated. Does anybody have any specific thoughts on categories? Or
I mean, I would just say the ones that struck me, there were 3 that struck me as being very, where the board felt it was unsatisfactory or slanted in those directions. I mean, most of the board felt, you know, within the board superintendent relations, there was one item that was there that, you know, board performance and board operations. Within those 3, there was each an item, like board performance, you know, adequate or unsatisfactory. You know, the rating average was the 1.3 number, one of those lines. Works together in an atmosphere of mutual trust and respect. I mean, if you're going to do something and spend the energy and effort to do it, it would seem to me that you would pick those 3 or 4 items that were the lowest average score and then send them out maybe to everybody to say of those 3 or 4 or 5 items that were obviously the ones where we felt as a board, you know, we were deficient, which of those ones would maybe people prefer to work on as an action plan? That's another way of doing it. The CSA evaluation process came in low. You know, works together with superintendent spirit of mutual trust and confidence came out low on average. So, I mean, if you want to maybe pick 4 or 5 of those particular items, that's another way of trying to approach this.
4 or 5, did I hear you say?
Well, what I'm saying is there's a whole lot of things in here. So, I mean, you could say board superintendent relationships is maybe the one thing, and then within that, if we want to improve that area, we could come up with an action plan, or you could pick, you know, some of the items within that one and say those were the ones. Or you can come up with an average number for the whole topic and say this is the weakest area. Just throwing out other ways of, you know, rather than having 10 people throw 10 different
But what I'd
things
like,
at you.
I have faith in this group to consolidate around a few items.
but what I
That's my
like what
belief.
Jerry is saying, Paul, is he's saying something which the board can act and be effective. I don't see the board being too effective in policy. Policies are coming at us fast, and we don't need 10 of us to improve our knowledge of policy. I would do this for my own need, process of elimination, where I feel there's very little action that this board can do. What Jerry is bringing up, I think anything that has to do with board relationship, that's something that we can work on.
So then tell me which of in the board relationships or board working, there's about 4 categories in there. There's board operations, there's board performance, there's board superintendent relations, and there's board staff relationships. Which of those would you think we would be most beneficial to pursue?
I'll again say we have very little to do with staff, so I would go process
So-
of elimination.
So however you want to eliminate them, pursue the method that you want to eliminate it, but then come back and say, this is the one I would like to pursue.
Work on.
Okay, and you can go to Jerry's, you can go down to the next level and you can say, you know what? I know in this area of board performance, there were these, we maybe had a score like this, but in there's one item I really feel pretty strongly about pursuing. Because if you look at that, there's about 5 questions under board performance. And you may go through each of these and pick out 3 or 4 of them and say, these are the ones I want to go after. But somehow we have to come to an agreement that says, of these 9 items, or not even these 9, but of the items in front of us, how do we want to pursue the development of a board development plan this year? This is a requirement that we have to come up with a development plan. And this is the best source of material that we have to help fuel that discussion. I'm getting a bunch of blank stares here, or lack of interest.
It's very hard for me to get my head around this one, because to me it's very new that we're doing so much looking at self rather than saying, where can we keep making the school better? And that's where
I'm not making the rules, Sandy. I'm just trying to administer them right now so that we get this done. I just want to get this done so we have a development plan for this board by November the 15th. We have to have that in place. And unless we get, I'll tell you what, if we don't get feedback, then it'll be written one way or the other. It's going to have to happen. It's going to happen.
But ideally, you want buy-in.
Ideally, I'd like to have some feedback.
I will call you tomorrow with my 2 recommendations.
I'll tell you, okay. Call me tomorrow.
I will call you tomorrow with my
But you
2
don't want just recommendations, you want us to follow up on it?
No, I just want recommendations
Okay.
to say these are I've read this report, and out of that report, you know what, Paul? These 2 strike me as being the ones that we really want to look at.
Okay.
From a
I
development
think I understand.
development plan for this board, why don't we look at these 2? And so you're going to have your 2, and Rob will have his 2,
broad area.
and Barry will have his 2, and Pete, and everybody's going to have their 2, and we'll try to then from that figure out where do we converge on 1 or 2 that seem to say this is where we'd like to have our work to spin. If we're going to do any development activity, let's at least do something where we all agree that that's where we'd like to spend it, because we'll end up doing something in the way of training, or I don't know, some activity that we might pursue that would help develop this area. Okay? All right. Obviously, we're not quite ready for this discussion tonight.
Well, is the board? Do you want the board members to get back to you with
I'm going to tell them
suggestions?
how to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to tell them how to do that.
Okay.
I will send you out. You call me tomorrow. Okay? So I'll get your phone call. Rob, listen up. I'm going to send everybody a form. It's actually the form I came with tonight to fill out. And I'll put some instructions on there for you as to what I want you to do. But it's going to be pretty simple. All I want you to do is to somehow indicate on that form and return it back to me that which of the categories you would like most, or you think we as a board need to most develop. And I'll put those instructions on there for you, and I will send that out to you tomorrow. Okay, I need your response back because we want to get this to Gwen, because then she's going to come back to us with some ideas of what those development activities might be.
And that should keep us out of trouble.
Don't everybody sound so enthusiastic about this opportunity to get development. I've got 2 already.
I think I like his.
That's all I wanted, just 2.
You want to read them to me, and then I'll say whether you can have mine too.
I don't want to influence anyone.
I'd already circled yours, Jerry.
You sounded as though you're on a good track. Though.
Okay.
I think, you know what,
I think we're making
I think
this too
could-
hard.
I think this could really be a good thing. And, you know, if we do it the right way, yeah, focus from CUSAC, one of the focus for CUSAC is to try to make boards better performing boards. I mean, it's clear that's one of the intents, to try to improve the level of performance. And for us to say, you know, we don't need this, or it's not right for us, or whatever, it doesn't involve us, you know, I think that's wrong. But if we really try to put something into it, I think we can really try to get something out of it. And we're going to go through the exercise, let's try to make it a meaningful one.
I'm going to tell you, I agree with Jerry on this. If we're going to go through the exercise, let's try to get something out of it. I don't want to spend time just wasted, but we're going to have to do something here, so let's see if we can't get something out of it. The other thing is, it's not that difficult to go through that report and read it and to understand it. And I will tell you something, it is striking to me, and I'm probably as guilty as everybody in this room, how poorly we judge individually, how poorly we judge the board, and how well we judge ourselves.
But you said that was
Take a
across
look
the
at it.
board. Don't feel bad
You know
about
what? Maybe across the board, maybe, no pun intended, but maybe you see it everywhere else. But just think about that for a second. And how realistic are we individually assessing either ourselves or our board? And maybe, maybe those two things ought to be a little bit closer together.
There you have it.
It could be, maybe we think everybody on the board is great or bad. Maybe we think, maybe I think individually I'm great or bad. I mean, but somehow those two things should be coming together. Okay, with that, I will send something out to you, Jerry. You have the option not only to fill this out now, but you can even change your mind and send me back the form. Okay, Pete, I'll get your phone call tomorrow. Okay. All right, that was my comments on that. We'll move on to Tim's comments. Mr. Stiles.
Okay. Briefly, the Department of Education, through the Commissioner's Office, released an 84-page document with new regulations. I had come to you in June and discussed some of the draft regulations. Some of them are here, some of them have been changed, and there are others here that are new. I've started to read through this. I don't want to go through the regs. There are significant changes in administrative requirements and financial oversight that are very strong micromanagement. I don't know any other way to say it. I'm going to give you one of the samples, and it's something that unfortunately our policy committee is going to have to tackle a lot of this stuff because there's an awful lot of requirements to change your policies. But this has to do with legal fees, and it's interesting the way it's played out. In terms of legal fees, I'm going to read right from the code. A maximum dollar limit has to be established. Oh, I'm sorry, that's public relations. In terms of legal fees, we have to establish procedures to ensure that prudent use of legal services by employees and the board members and tracking of those services, which include a limitation of the number of contact persons with the authority to request for those services, criteria or guidance to prevent the use of legal counsel unnecessarily for management decisions or readily available information contained in district materials, and they want it in policy, regulations, and such. Here's the thing that, when I read it, I had to read it like 2 or 3 times. They have a provision that we maintain a log of all legal counsel contact, including name, legal counsel contacted, date of contact, the issue discussed, and the length of the contact. Then they want us to take that list, that contact list, and compare it to each legal bill and match the two. That is now a legal requirement that we have to adhere to.
Can't we just get that from every time the attorney when he bills us and just duplicate it? Because that's what they do.
They want us to have an independent list. In other words, my office has to keep a log of every time we call, how long we call. It's like a timesheet almost, and compare it with the legal bill.
But they're saying Tim's call shows 20 minutes. On June 10th, we get the bill from
just
the law firm,
verifies
and it
what
shows
they're billing us
3
for.
hours and 20 minutes.
It just verifies what they're billing us for.
That's right.
It's a
the same thing,
reconciliation.
but it's a
the one thing you
verification.
can't verify is how long they do research and things like
Right.
that.
That's the problem.
So
Right.
it consumes a lot of their
That's the problem.
time too. 3 hours spent, doing this, 2 hours spent doing that.
What happens if you don't
preparing
do
this
it?
legal brief.
It's going to be impossible to reconcile because there's going to be other activities that are not going to be based on
Well,
phone
it's
calls
not,
or contacts.
10% is based on, you speaking to them, if that.
Right.
Yeah. My
So
sense
some
is
percentage is based on that speaking. The rest of it is going to be unreconcilable.
Would it help if there was if they didn't bill us for certain time? I mean, if there was a cutoff in terms of, they don't bill us for conversations and it's kind of embedded in a fee, or does that not help us?
essentially the regs want you to have
If they're
all.
not billing you for 15-minute calls, then do you have to keep records of 15-minute calls?
Well, you see, in some districts as well, some districts hire, like I say, hire general counsel on a flat retainer. In other words, whether you use $10,000 worth of contact, they bill you for $7,000 because that's their legal retainer for the year. You know, the district I worked in before this one had that arrangement with their legal counsel.
We did too, Fred.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's something that would make this, more palatable, that the maximum, say if it's a $5,000 maximum or a $10,000 maximum, that's the retainer per year, and that's the ceiling to which you can be billed. I don't know if that would fulfill this requirement.
If you're the lawyer billing $20,000 a month, who's going to agree to cap it at $5,000?
Well, that's the thing. That's the other issue. Especially, we have 3 different law firms we work with. We work with a general counsel. We work with special education counsel. And we work with construction counsel.
Tim, you know how to deal with this. I'd suggest you put the minimal amount of effort in that gives you a plausible, plausible result.
I think Pia, if you can do what Pete said, which is copy their bill and say that's it, but I don't think that's going to be successful. So.
Well, no, they're not. They want you to match up, but the point is, 90% of the bill doesn't match up anyway. They're researching, preparing, drafting, attending, and that's 90% of the bill, and 10% of the bill is discussions with Fran, discussions with Tim. So 90% of the bill can't be reconciled.
Yeah, and I just point that out because I just want to point out the
stupidity,
the micromanagement, the level of micromanagement that are in some of these regs. Some of it are good regulations. Some of it is, quite frankly, a waste of time.
I think the intent here is to control legal costs. I mean, that's part
in
of
that particular regulation, yes.
Yeah.
But
the intent or the result is auditing certain Abbott districts and seeing ridiculous expenditures on food catering and every other thing, and then they come back to say, we can't order pizza for our retreat, and that's the absurdity of what's going on.
These
you can't even
regs
go to
were
a
really
restaurant and pay for it for yourself.
These regs were really developed initially to monitor the efficiencies that are within the Abbott districts. They have now taken them and imposed them on all of us, which is completely inappropriate. It's a very, very difficult standard.
It is what we have. Anything else, Tim?
No, just
do the best you can, Tim. That's
anything else?
Just one other thing with the regs, and it has to do with travel. One of the changes they made is that travel reimbursement for mileage. The IRS rate just went up to 58.5 cents. That's the Internal Revenue Service rate. Now, under these regs, we are not to follow the IRS rates. We have to follow the OMB rates, which is the Office of Management and Budget. Their rate of reimbursement is 31 cents, and that is on any employee in the district whose contract ended on June 30th.
So
There's only one employee who doesn't apply to
why
because
drive
that
everybody.
right, which is Fran.
Crazy.
Now, everyone else, teachers included, is 31 cents.
There you go.
Fran will do the right thing, no doubt. And
I can drive everyone and
Charge
bill
us
for
30
everyone.
Which is kind of rough. I got to tell you, that is a little rough.
It's not compensatory.
Nonsense.
Punitive.
It's punitive.
It's
As a matter of fact, if you look
So-
at what they've done, the 3-year look back and things like that with CUSAC, it gets characterized as punitive across the board. So, Tim, anything else?
No, that's just
when
two
does the
things.
legal one become effective? When is this?
It's in effect.
I think they're by law now.
In effect, the problem is, though, that a lot of these things, including the legal, are asking you to put a policy together. And there's
So the
a lot
policy
of...
committee is going to get busy again. Strauss Smith is going to have to.
Yeah. And I just would...
Wouldn't Strauss estimate?
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, they're going to have to come up with things, and we're going
It's
to have
across the board.
we're gonna
It's
have
a
to-
state reg now.
I
to
just want
customize
to...
them for us.
And in your discussion with the, with some of the board issues on the evaluation, the policy one was one that was one of the areas.
Right.
And Jerry mentioned it, and I think there was a comment in there that the board and the administration aren't necessarily on the same page with that, and that's not uncommon. Just in my experience, I think that's something, given the amount of policies that we have here, just to consider. I'm not asking to move one direction or other, but policies are going to be critical going forward.
Okay.
That's all I
How many
have.
policies do we have, if you venture again?
Oh, thousands.
No, we don't have that many.
No,
We've
offhand.
actually got fewer
The
now.
regulations we do.
We have actually fewer now than we did
Can you ballpark
3 years
figure
ago.
it for me?
We just haven't rescinded a whole bunch of them that we probably should be rescinding.
That's in Trenton too. There are a bunch of laws on the books that should have rescinded long
Yeah, I
time
know.
ago. They keep putting new ones on, and we're getting to that point too,
Okay.
where we're just
So
piling them on. And then we say, are you board people knowledgeable of your policies?
Thank you. We can rant and rave about this until sometime tomorrow morning, and it won't help us complete our agenda for tonight. So I will be glad to be served the ranting and raving part. Can we move on to committees and reports? It looks like we have personnel, B&G, co-curricular, policy and regulation, community and business relations. Can we start with personnel?
Sure. We met July 21st. We talked about an item which you'll see on tonight's agenda, which is the non-affiliated staff salary recommendations. The administration proposed a set of numbers. When we evaluated the numbers, they come in a little bit above where the contract for the teachers wound up being. So we asked them to go back and refine the numbers to make it consistent with where the contract with the association was, which they went and did, so that the numbers that you'll see tonight are on average the same number that is appropriate to the contract with the association. There was a lot of discussion about this. I think the committee, although not unanimous in supporting this, certainly agreed that this was correct. There were other approaches suggested, and you may hear more discussion about some other people, with different feelings about it tonight. I'm not sure. We did look at we do have a job description for the HR manager, which the committee has reviewed, and the administration is in the process of scheduling interviews starting on Thursday. Tomorrow. With Dr. Begancy, Bev, Tim, Fran, and Kathy, the guidance director, involved as a committee doing the interviewing. We talked a bit about the status of new teacher hiring. There are some open positions. There are some resignations, which you'll see on the agenda for this evening. We still have a bunch of openings that are not filled, but some of the openings were filled, and you see some of those people on the agenda for this evening. Some of the people also, some of the gaps that are there are going to be filled by use of .2s and .1s, I think, from other teachers to make sure that there's coverage for the subjects where we're not going to have staff. We talked quite a bit about resignation of Coach McAteer, which officially is on the agenda for this evening, his resignation to go to Bridgewater. And the committee's feeling was that you want to get the best possible person in that position. There is a potential for an assistant, I think, to step in this year. We're not sure that's a long-term answer or not, but we certainly want to make sure that we get the most qualified basketball coach, varsity level coach we can. There's also an item on the agenda tonight for an interim supervisor for social studies. You know that the previous one resigned. There's issues in the department, and the person that was there previously has agreed to come back as an interim. It's being done as an interim position with no benefits. The total salary will be less than it would have been had the current supervisor remained in that position with benefits. So there's actually a slight budgetary savings, and the administration is fairly confident that this person can deal with some of the issues that the previous supervisor left us with. So that's pretty much, I think, what we covered. I don't know if Sandy or Pete want to add anything.
Anybody have any questions? Other comments? Okay. With that, thank you. Most of those items you see on the agenda for tonight. Can we go on to who's going to cover B&G for tonight? Do you want to try to cover the B&G report? I'm at 10. I'll try to fill in where you like.
I'm going to have to go from memory, Mr. President, so I'll do the best I can. The B&G committee met last week. A number of topics were discussed. For one of the items, let's see, let's look on the agenda. One of the items that we had discussed was preparing a list of items that the B&G committee, that's all encompassing for the B&G committee to review in terms of future budget. In that list, we need the long-range facility plan items, the grounds projects that are outstanding, the outstanding building projects, and projects that we had from meetings in the past. We had some input prior to the meeting. I know today I got more input. I got a big, thick list from Mr. Pepe. And we also had some stuff that we had from grounds. We're going to try to encompass that in one list for the committee. That was one of the topics we discussed. We discussed the sewage project. We had, let's see, we have two individual projects. One is the snack shack for the football field, and the other is the septic tank in the bus garage, which hasn't really changed at this point in time. Research on the sewer leakage found that there was a cracked pipe that needs to be repaired. The sewer authority did come out. They did find a repair. One of the things, however, that is going to delay our ability to provide running water to the snack shack is that we have to move into the wetlands area. So we have to move forward and look at a wetlands delineation, it's called. So that will delay that project.
We're not going to be able to hook into the hub on the JV baseball field down there?
Not that I'm aware of, Paul.
Okay.
That was one of the things that was discussed. I believe we briefly discussed the cafeteria where we're going to serve lunches, and one of the rooms in the south cafeteria where we're looking at adding space there. And that part of the meeting will be discussed later, at the next B&G meeting. We need to do a change of use with the county Somerset County office to move forward on that.
Driveway?
Thank you. The driveway was discussed. At this point in time, we had quotes. The vendor came back and wanted to increase that amount, but we could not do that at this point without going back out to get additional quotes. In other words, we can't get 3 quotes from 3 different vendors and then have the vendor with the low quote come back and say, I got to raise my prices. That legally we cannot do that, so we're going back to the vendor to see if he's going to hold firm on his price, or we're going to have to go back out to quote.
What did he quote, and what does he want the increase?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
What's what was his bid?
Honestly, I don't know.
Is this like a $20,000 job, $200,000 job?
It's less than 20. That I know. And I don't know what the amount of increase that he was looking for. And I don't think that was discussed at the committee meeting.
So, but does he want the increase because he missed something in the bid?
No, his concern
you'd have
was
to throw out his bid and award it to the second lowest guy, right?
No, I think it was his concern was the price of one of his products that go into the surfacing went up dramatically, and he wants to reflect that in the price.
Yeah, but Tim, if at the day with any bid, if someone submits a bid, 3 guys, $10,000, $10,000, $15,000, and $20,000, and the guy who submits $10,000 says I can't honor my bid, then by law, don't we have to pick the $15,000 guy?
Yeah, but I got to look at the prices, though, Rob. I don't know where the disparity is between number 1 and number 2. I don't know. I don't have all the facts.
No, but I'm just saying. What my point is that if you decide then I'm going to rebid it, the guy who's the second bidder You know, I mean, you know, he becomes the lowest guy because the other guy can't honor the price. He's got a claim against the school if you go out to bid because he's the next lowest guy. He gets picked.
Yeah,
You don't have to accept bids.
Maybe
No,
you
no,
do. Well, that's not so clear.
Yeah, you're right, and that's a possibility as well. If the second bidder honors his price and it's lower than the first guy, then we can legally go to the second guy. That is true. But again, I don't know all the facts yet, so I have to follow up on that.
I think we also talked about the tile floor.
We talked about the progress of the tile floor, and the superintendent added it in her comments. There's really one of the things that did come through today that we did not have in discussion with the B&G committee is that there is a change order on the agenda. I did get that today from Mr. Fuhr. Spoke with the board, the construction attorney, and Mr. Fuhr. Essentially, there's issues with the concrete, the subflooring, that needs to be repaired. The change order on the agenda is, it's a walk-in, it's item D12 and D13.
It's a $9,500 change order.
Right. The change order is $9,500. That is to add crack suppression membrane, it's called.
This was discussed and mentioned in the B&G committee meeting.
Mr. Fuhr mentioned it, but he did not have a price, and he wasn't sure of the condition. But we did get that tonight. I did follow through with the construction attorney. We are back charging $9,500 to Torcon. There was a $997 change order. That was an owner request to change some of the tile layout in the lobby floor. We are not back charging that. That was an owner request. And again, I reviewed both of those with the attorney.
Specifically, you know, what concerns me about this, not the $9,500. I mean, is this you know, for a change order, is that something that you know, Torcon or Torcon's guy can come back to us and just, you know, this whole lawsuit and say, aha, now you changed the spec or you added a spec for a crack suppression membrane. If you'd done that in the first place, you know, that our work would have been satisfactory, and therefore you didn't have to go replace our $200,000. You know, that's not. I can't answer that. You can't answer that.
Michael's been reviewing each one of these to answer exactly that question, to make sure that, and indeed that was part of the whole bid process and the specifications of material to make sure that we weren't going
at the end of the day. At the end of the day, Paul, if the architect says you need this and we didn't do it the first time, you better do it the second time so it doesn't crack anyway. We'll just have to roll the dice.
But I think this is my guess, without talking to Michael, is that this is a condition that occurred, which was not expected and should not have occurred. But
right, it's called an unforeseen condition
for the next stage. So, anything else then from the?
Yeah, we had talked about the football locker room that we do want to complete prior to school opening. There was some confusion on exactly what we were doing. We want to work on the floor, possibly put some VCT, just like the baseball locker rooms. Repair the lockers that are unsafe at this point in time. There are lockers that are unsafe, and we would also like to paint those lockers. We do believe that two of those things we can get done prior to school. The painting, depending on the availability of the vendors, may go beyond that, but we want to do it within the school year. And I don't think he remembers.
Locker rooms are being repaired also, that ones were defective, right?
The lockers, not the rooms,
Yes.
the lockers.
No, he's talking about the football locker room. I'm
That's
talking
right.
about
The lockers.
Yes, that's true.
Right.
There's some replacements coming.
Rather slowly, I might add. I guess from the meeting that I do recall that Don had said that the contractor isn't exactly
They've been at it
moving
since
quickly.
December.
Fran,
Yeah.
one of the things I asked Tim to ask Nick.
Fire alarm.
One of the things I asked, and I don't know if you asked Nick this question. We've talked about the track, that it needs to be replaced, $100,000. And I asked Tim if he could ask Nick whether he thought, separate issue from whether we could, in this budget year, come up with a 90 or 100,000, but just in terms of if it were feasible to do that work in the fall, so the track would be ready for the spring, this coming spring, or, it would be, couldn't do it with the football, where there's a way to block it out, the work, that it wouldn't interfere with the football use of the field, whether you put boards down or not. So, I'd like just to ask Nick, first question, second question is, can we come up with $90,000 to do it? But and if we did, then, and if it could be done in the fall, then it'd be ready in the spring. It's unlikely if we'd be able to do it in the spring, because March is crummy weather, April it's over.
So your question is, could we start the track renovation sometime in the fall and have it ready
without interfering with football or soccer? That's what I'm curious.
Nick's probably not the right person to answer that, but the B&G committee will take it. We can put that in the list of things to look at.
Someone, whether it's not a big deal, is a big deal, I don't know. What do you think, Peter?
We'll add it on our list of things to talk about.
You need to do it now if you're going to do it, or begin now, because that's my feeling.
Probably a summer activity. I don't know. We'll take a look at it. Let's find out, get some information.
So I'd love to think if we could come up with the money that'd be ready for the kids in the spring.
It would be great. I have a question.
Yes.
We didn't really act on anything. We just discussed.
Yes.
Okay. My question is, and since my recollection is we mentioned a thing or two that you didn't, but since were only discussed and there was no recommended action, the fact that you didn't mention it doesn't mean it's not still in the discussion stage as it was on Tuesday. Specifically,
I think it means more that his memory is incomplete. Or
that's my point.
Here, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, okay.
The
minutes?
You're sneaky. You could have
I
given
have
it
the
to
minutes
him.
from the meeting. That's what I was trying to prompt you with.
Thank you.
There were some other things.
My memory was
That's
incomplete.
what I was saying.
That's why like guardrails were talked about, quotes of, quotes on guardrails.
Yes.
To fix them. There was nothing new in the pit lift.
Fire alarm.
Fire alarm system was talked about.
I did remember the fire alarm, yes.
And we were looking at...
I prefaced my comments that I may not remember.
Right. But again, there was no definitive action or deletion,
Right.
Positive action or deletion. And that's my point.
That's correct.
So when we get the report from Lou and we act on it, and we're at the next meeting, because it wasn't mentioned here tonight, it doesn't mean it was excluded.
No, we were
That's
trying to
right.
get a
Fine.
more
That's all.
complete list, too.
Yes.
Remember where there were some items
I hear you. That's my point.
And then probably the next thing the B&G committee is going to be going through is looking at a very complete list of all the things that we're aware of.
the list continues
that
to
are out
grow.
there.
What about the green initiatives, though?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yes, Laura
That came
Mandel
up in community relations, too.
came to our committee and we discussed green initiatives. One of the things that she was interested in, and the committee was interested in, using green cleaning solutions for the building. Mr. Suarez was at the meeting, and he discussed his conversations with Pritchard to move to these in the fall, into September, that they want to move to those. I think there were other initiatives discussed at the meeting, if I remember right, including some energy savings. I know Lou had mentioned a company that would do a free audit, how to reduce your energy based on your units, your heating units and such, and lighting. And we did reach out to them, and we'd look to set up an appointment with them. Is there anything else?
I just want, before you go on, the concept of green cleaning fluids, just so everybody's aware of it and our public is aware, it doesn't mean color green. It means
Thank you.
it means solvents and materials and cleaning fluids which are considered to be safe from an environmental standpoint as well as from a
Bleach-free, chlorine-free,
whatever they
things
may
that
be. Absence
that
of
are
various
harmful to
organic
students, and
materials.
people put them down, they go in the sewer, and all sorts of things like that.
Yes.
No, we didn't talk about that.
I don't believe we
It's just
did.
cleaning.
They're already regulated by some others. They may be covered already.
I'm not sure.
Also, the labeling of the cleaning products, I think that was an issue that the company just uses, had been just using various bottles and refilling them now the bottles will be labeled, so everything is.
Do we recycle in the school?
We've begun. It's a slow process. One of the reasons why it's a slow process is at times the people who do empty the trash don't pay attention to the fact that there are blue containers and that are for the recycling, and regular containers, receptacles for the rest of the trash.
One of the
so they just throw everything.
One of the
in
biggest
same
offenders is
trash.
water bottles. They're going. They're just dumped into dumps. About 40 billion of them a year.
Well, all the trash, when they gathered, it was getting into one trash bin, even though we were separating things in the school. So I think we've now made the point. We want the trash separated so that the recycling can go into one location and the regular trash into another.
If you're interested, download Plan. Okay, I have a copy of it because I do work for City University. Plan YC. It's actually Plan PLAN-YC. It's the mayor's report. It's probably the best single, all-encompassing effort to reduce a carbon footprint, to recycle. It covers a lot of things that are of no interest
We got
to
something
us.
like that from.
But that will show you, more than any other single source. And you go to the New York City, website, you get that report.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else B&G that needs to come up here? Let's move on to co-curricular.
We didn't meet, but we're going to set up a meeting for August 14th.
Okay.
I'll be away.
Policy. Yeah.
The reason we're selecting that date is only because.
I'll be away.
Okay, but I just.
That's why you're selecting.
Yeah, yes, you're right. Okay.
Okay, policy and regulations. You have in front of you tonight a number of policies that came as a result of the meeting.
Are we going on to business or?
No, I'm on the policy and regulation review.
Okay.
I'm not on to that. I'm not going on yet. Lost my minutes. Just a second. I'm looking for. Dot spends all his time now losing. Here we go. We have about, I think it's about 11 policies that are in for second read. These are ones that we looked at the last time. And we have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 10 policies for second read. We have 11 policies in for first read. That, again, if you remember, the first read policies are basically out there for the first time. Take a look at them. You can have comments on them. Send the comments to me. We'll get them. Take your comments and try to integrate them into the policies as need be. The 10 policies that we're reading now, the second time, are going to be read and reviewed and read into effect tonight. That's the purpose of a first and second reading. I will point out to you on the one policy, there are a number of policies that are currently in work, and one I'll just mention right now. 7230, which talks about gifts, grants, and donations, is a companion policy, or has a counterpart to that, which is called pupil fundraising, which we're in the process of finishing up and working on, revising, so that it's consistent. We have in place a fundraising policy, which we're converting into what we call a pupil fundraising, and it's going to then be the counterpart to the gifts, grants, and donations. That's going to speak specifically to activities and efforts that are undertaken by students within the school as part of the school program. That's a policy that is, like I said, which is pupil fundraising, which is underway. There are a number of other policies that are underway that we'll be bringing forward hopefully at the next meeting. A number of those have been read, gone through the committee. They're being sent back for legal discussion and comments. I think, Jerry, we sent one over to you for looking at also on evaluation of the superintendent. A couple that are real key for us to get ahead of is one that you mentioned is foreign exchange students policy. We're working on that one to come forward with. We've sent it to look at to Tony's office to give us some guidance on some of the final recommendations and edits that we're doing to it. We have taken basically policies from 4 or 5 other districts and consolidated them together to give us a policy which we believe makes sense here. They were provided to us through Strauss-Esme.
Paul,
Paul, go ahead.
On that one,
one,
the student foreign
exchange.
Yeah. What I, in reading this, I thought it was very interesting. I mean, at least the way it's written now, the kid from Greenbrook comes. Greenbrook's got to pay $12,000. The kid, from Denmark is living in Warren. he goes free. I mean, did you read the policy? Does it read that way to you? So why does a kid?
Unless you decide otherwise.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's the question I have. I mean, why should the school? The kid is not a resident. He happens to be residing in Warren. There's a difference. So if a kid in any of our 3 districts comes over from Germany, comes over wherever it is, just by virtue of his residing here, not being a resident, it's not your kid domiciled in Long Hill. It's almost no different than a kid from Boundbrook decides to reside with his aunt, but his true domicile is in Dunellen. The whole point is, I think in my opinion, any foreign exchange student that comes for a year, not 2 weeks or 3 weeks, based on a exchange program we have that goes to Spain or Italy or any of that stuff, but for either half the year or full year, someone should be paying for it, not the taxpayers of Long Hill, Warren, or Watchung. We're asking Greenbrook to pay, so I don't, the peculiarity of your being a sending district. I think, we shouldn't give, the only ones that get free education, to me, are people, taxpayers and their kids, or a legal guardian that lives in the district.
So, foreign exchange students that reside.
Any foreign exchange student that you accept is what he's saying. Whether it's in Boundbrook, Greenbrook, Long Hill, Orange, should pay tuition.
Now, I'd say and you might. That's what I'm saying.
You're saying
might want
everybody should pay tuition.
Well, and maybe you say you're requiring for at least a semester. If the kid's here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because we have a corresponding program.
I just want to. You're saying no matter what district they're from, they should pay tuition.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other thing that I didn't see addressed in here is busing.
Okay.
There's no mention of busing at all.
If you have other comments thank you. If you have other comments on this policy, get them forward, bring them forward, and you can.
And the one where Bob mentioned also about this, obviously you say you can only take 4 students, but you don't say not counting the 2-week exchange, mutual exchange.
I guess that we thought that was implied. This is only applying.
I'm not sure it's implied.
Yeah.
I know what you meant, but
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe you want it specifically.
We will
say.
state something that excludes those from being considered as part of the foreign. These are actually the term foreign exchange is actually codified in the U.S. regulations, and that's where a lot of this stuff comes from.
Maybe the words like would be part of a reciprocal program.
I think that
or
that's like the 2-week kind of program.
Yeah, we say you might say it's a fluky thing. Kids here for 2 weeks. You might say any program less. Not exceeding 1 month. Maybe there'd be a circumstance. It's not a reciprocal thing. The kid's father is transferred. I don't know. And you're here for a couple of weeks. We're not going to make a big deal over stuff. We're talking about the full-fledged cost of educating a kid for a semester or a whole year. That's my opinion.
Is anybody? I'm pleased that you guys have had a chance to scan through this so quickly. Or I guess you probably had some of them before. But any other comments on these policies at this time?
Just the other thing is, when you're talking about foreign exchange, I'm not sure you want to define to receive an F1 student, a foreign exchange must demonstrate. Why would you put all that in our policy? That's really covered by law, isn't it?
The F1 is, yes.
So, why do we want it? If the law changes or whatever, I just want to make sure that, they must have that, and we leave it at that, in accordance with applicable laws.
Yeah, I think when the attorney reviewed this, the policies do refer both to J1 and F1 visa, so that's why they included it here, rather than to exclude it.
No, I didn't say. I'm saying, why do we spell out the terms and conditions of somebody getting an F1 visa?
Why do we or don't we?
Why do we?
It's a fair enough question. Again, probably more for clarity for somebody reading the policy, so they don't have to go and go find it in the U.S. code. What is an F1 visa and what is a J1 visa? So, but we'll take a look at it and see if it should be excluded.
Usually, those are you're here in the United States for longer than 90 days. It's a cultural. One's a cultural exchange, which it might be the F1 and a J1 or vice versa is educational.
F1 is the education.
Like if you have an au pair
J1
from Sweden or
exchange.
something, because I know we've had them that they're F1. If they stay to take courses, it becomes a J1 or vice versa, whatever it is. So a foreign exchange, if they're a foreign exchange student, by nature they have to have one of those 2 visas anyway. If they're staying more than I don't know, 3 months. I don't know what the cutoff is.
Senate?
Question. I don't know if anyone's going to answer me, but when we say foreign exchange student, and I know it's nomenclature that's been used a long time, but they really aren't an exchange student, are they?
No,
An exchange program is usually, which we've had.
It's usually it's really a foreign study.
The foreign exchange term comes from the federal code. And the reason it's called an exchange is because in their view, at the federal level, it is run by these organizations that are set up to handle exchange programs, whereby maybe we have a student here, and that exchange is handled maybe with another school going over there. So it's an exchange in the broadest sense of the U.S. population as opposed to just this school. That's where that term comes
The
from.
nomenclature bothers me, but if it has to be because of the federal government, I guess I'm on two tonight
I
saying,
think
let's clarify
we don't
things.
even want to.
Call a spade a spade. But I personally have no problem. I think there's tremendous enrichment if we get the right kind of student. And that I'd like to protect us, that we don't get a non-English speaking person, that we have to give tremendous support.
Or other issues that come.
Or behavioral issues or something, Don't send them over here because they can't live with their parents, and then we get them.
Well, it says they should possess a reasonable faculty of the English language.
That's
No,
actually, again, the fact is, in the code, they're required to have a certain facility of English
No
language,
question.
and that's what you're required
And
to
we
do.
have had them, and they have been enriching for our own students. And if our students can go abroad, it's generally done at college level, but everything seems to be pushed further down. Algebra's down in third grade now, practically. So that's okay with me. When we have a lot of exchange students, which we do get, I wonder if we should restrict the number so that it doesn't overtax our teachers.
I think we're to 4.
No, but this is different. These are the longer term students, are they not? Versus the groups that we have sent before, the ones that go to Germany or Spain.
Yes, we're not talking about the kids where we do an exchange. In other words, our kids go there,
and theirs come here.
It's
that
really,
to me is truly the exchange student.
That's not what this policy is really covering.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why this is not
to-
really addressing the other.
To the points that were made, we're going to put language in to exclude that reciprocal kind of agreement where we have made an arrangement with the school in Madrid and the one in
Yeah, and I think we're.
and the students are dispersed sufficiently that they're not all going to one class. They're dispersed while they're here to various groups. Yeah.
They're really just getting a cultural experience. They're not getting academic education. They're getting cultural education.
Is there a maximum age that you'll accept them to? Is a minimum age?
I didn't hear that.
Is there a maximum age they can be before you accept
I think they
them?
have to be 15.
No,
that's the minimum. I think there is a maximum.
Because they don't have it in here.
We'll check.
Or you think a
I think
26-year-old
the
wants to be
maximum
watching Hills High School?
21-year-old, is that?
No,
you accept a 21-year-old?
Yeah, but ultimately it's at Fran's discretion anyway to accept them, right? It's not forced to accept them.
If they're 47, we can
Well,
say.
even if they fit in and they could be 23 years old, Fran say I don't want the 23-year-old juniors.
I want to become an exchange student. But I think there are actually restrictions on that, but that have to do with the grade that they're in. They have to be in school in their
At some
in their country
corresponding grade level.
at some level that corresponds to here. Bernie, do you have a comment?
Yeah, my comment was that I think we could probably go further and maybe say 8 and 2 per each grade. I mean, with a school of 2,000, if we get people from different countries, I think there's a benefit to us to do that. I wouldn't want them all from one country.
Yeah, the only problem is that when we start talking in those kind of numbers, our electives, our seats in the electives are pretty scarce. And if we say 4, that's really like 1 per grade level, so that doesn't usually impact us.
How many have you had? Not counting the
Actually, we've had quite a few.
not counting the 2-week kids.
No, but we've had quite a few.
At one time?
Yeah.
Like how many?
5, 6. It's funny when you ask the question, you find the answer. Because I never thought we had many either. But then when I started to pursue this with guidance, this one is coming and this one's coming and that one came and sometimes they stay more than a year. So you might have them for 2 years.
Yeah, if we've had 5 or 6 and we didn't even know it, I would argue that we could probably take 8. And not
Let's
even
put it
know
this way. I didn't know it. That doesn't mean that others didn't know it.
I'm just saying that I don't want to tie you
Bernie's
too
point is
tight.
we want to go from 4 to 8.
It's at your discretion anyway, right? So
The big driver on this is going to be whether we decide to charge or not. Also,
When we were a school of 1,000, we could absorb 7 or 8 kids. It wasn't a problem. A school of 2,200 we're having a little more difficulty finding seats for them that without
bumping one of our kids, if it's the last seat in photography, the last seat in ceramics, bumping them out, putting one of our own kids in.
But
I
a school
think
of
you just
2,000
touched
probably has twice as
money.
many class sections as a
Right.
school of 1,000.
Yeah,
So
but they're
to me, it's
pretty well,
proportionally, it
they're
sounds
pretty
like it's
efficiently
similar.
utilized.
Let me ask a question.
Back to Rob's question, though, as to whether or not you charge tuition to everybody or not.
There are
That's-
two-
that's
there-
the philosophical.
It's in here that we do charge.
There's two questions here.
No,
one
that's
of which
only,
has
it's
to
only
do,
Greenbrook.
One of which has to do with the number of students, whether it goes from 4, stays at 4, whether we want it as a board increase it to 8. The other question is, do we want it, in the last paragraph, we talk about tuition, and the question there is, do we want to just say, if you're going to come, you're going to pay tuition? All students coming are going to end up paying tuition.
Or a waiver thereof is in there.
You know,
You've got the
but we
waiver
can
language
by
in there.
policy say we're not going to waive it. I think your preference would say,
Listen,
charge.
I mean, our kids, they pay. Everyone pays, goes to
If it's a-
school. Why should someone come here for a year and not pay?
If it's an F1 visa, I think by law, by the federal law, they're required to pay tuition. It's up to us then to make that decision. We can decide. We can write it in here and say pay the tuition.
I mean, I'd rather have it in there, and, when you hand up the policy, this is what we expect. If they want to comply, they comply.
If
If it's not part of a reciprocal exchange program and it exceeds the 1 month, there'll be a pro rata charge based on the length of stay. So if they're here for 2 months, they pay 20% or whatever, something like that. That's if everyone else pays,
Can I get a
why
sense-
should they not pay?
I've heard you. Can I get Bernie? What's your view?
Just a question, do you, do we know what other schools do in this regard?
They charge, and
Most
that's
charge.
why we get so many.
Oh.
The companies that place these schools, students rather look for schools that don't charge.
What's your view, Bernie?
I think we should leave the maximum flexibility for Fran. I'd say, 8 with her approval, and I'd leave the door open for a waiver on whenever she brings it to us and recommends it.
Now, what about the issue of paying?
I think there's a waiver clause here that says,
Yes,
based
it
on
is.
circumstances, you can consider it.
Everyone will have circumstances.
There'll always-
That's-
yeah.
there'll always be circumstances.
Sandy, what's your view?
Somebody's got to.
Bernie, another thought that was expressed by I think one of the members of the committee was that if these students are full-fledged members of the student body, they are then offered the opportunity to compete first of all, if there's a class limitation and someone is excluded from that class because of the number of students, which happens all the time, does the local kid get excluded, or does the
I think that's up to Tom, and
Okay.
common sense would say the local person gets preference.
Well,
That's common sense. That's not that's not
doesn't
the
always mean
policy.
that it's going to be policy.
But that's not a policy question, isn't it? Isn't that a
No, that's a
Well,
reality.
that's why we want to limit it to maximum of 4.
That's reality. Second thing is, when kids are competing for athletic teams, and if there is a cut situation, the kid from the Netherlands, outstanding soccer player, #1 soccer player in the world, takes a spot of one of our locals who gets cut. How do you explain that to the parent or the kid? Those are things that were discussed and brought up.
If they're paying, it's
a different
that's what I'm
situation.
saying. It's fair. You say they're a
situation.
tuition paying kid.
Yeah.
You don't have that issue.
These are some of the things that were discussed and thought of.
Do we send children to other schools on this program?
Other
No.
kids from our
From-
school
just,
go
just
to
the
other
short,
countries.
the short term.
This
The
is not a
short
program.
term.
Short program. It's like a 2-week program.
Other kids from our school go to other countries for a year abroad or something like that.
Occasionally that happens.
I mean, I know of 2 that I spoke to you about that spent a year overseas.
And usually the parents work that out for the child.
By the way, we're not talking about a situation where the father, works for IBM in England and is transferred here for a year.
That's
They're
different.
they're a resident like anyone else.
This
We're talking
is
about
different.
the father's still working at IBM and his kid is being shipped here for a year.
So, I'm not getting a clear indication here on
Well, why don't you ask the
tuition.
question about paying?
The tuition, that's what I was trying to get around the room on that. Sandy, what's your view on tuition?
I'm so in favor of, I'm so aware that there's a global world going on there, and the more that all of us at any age, but even high school age, get out there and see something else, I think it's a tremendous plus, and I think it's a plus to have certain youngsters, not everyone who comes here. I like the opportunity to have a waiver if someone really has a strong reason to waiver, but I don't like the idea of the organization who's making money and then come looking for the cheapy school. And if we become the cheapy school, that's a pity.
I agree with Sandy on that.
That's how they get here.
So you agree with the waiver?
I'd like to leave that little
Leave it
waiver clause
open
because
for
someone may be
administration.
coming that's not through the organization. You know, it could
Almost
be-
never. They all
Pete.
come that way.
They all come. Well, that one
Well, I
who
think
just
they should
came.
Well, the one from the
You-
Netherlands.
no waiver.
That's the only one.
Right? Pay. Okay. Eric? Jerry?
I'd say pay, and the problem with waivers is, as Fran pointed out, everybody's going to want to argue their circumstance. So every time you get one of these students, you're going to want to hear why they deserve a waiver. And you're gonna-
Was Frank going to start investigating the financial wherewithal of some kid who's
No,
living
no.
in England? I mean, no, I'm saying it's unfair. We're not a financial aid organization that makes a determination whether this kid should
Policy
go and this
be
kid should
policy,
pay.
And I don't agree with the waiver either. I
Okay.
think that should be the policy.
I got 3 and 2. I would go with a no waiver.
That's fine.
I think we give guidance. I think if we leave it open, we give no guidance to Fran, and this sets the stage for us then to have some clear actions here. Because these organizations, I think, are savvy to who's willing to accept it and who's
Francis.
not.
And
Fran
if
said
there really,
that.
Yeah.
if there really are special circumstances, they will come to us, like they've done.
Okay, so with that, we will write that in as a no waiver. And 4 or 8,
I'd like to see 4 minutes.
Fran's put
That's one per grade
motivated
level.
towards 4. Bernie's suggesting we take it up to 8. Rob,
Just don't have
I
space.
think, you know, the
just don't have space.
discretion,
The
discretion of
discretion.
superintendent. She
same with you. Discretion of superintendent.
We just don't have the space.
Pete,
You know my feeling, it
4.
always comes back to final decision
4.
by the board.
4.
4. But again, final decision is always by the board.
Well, that's going to go in the policy, Peter, so you
So
decide.
you're saying the board could go beyond 4 at any particular time it wanted to with Fran's
If
advice?
Fran comes to us and
If we
says, you know
have
what, guys, I
space."
really think we should go to 6 this year,
That's
her
really
choice.
all I want to
The
do, is
board
just make sure the door is open.
but
if
she
something
can't
came up.
go. She can't go above 4 without coming back to
When
us.
the Siamese twins apply.
You're going to see in Fran's opinion, what Fran said. It's $12,000 a pop. You're going to see a decrease, right?
Yeah, you will.
They'll
The reality
they'll
is-
disappear.
I'm trying to get this done by 9:30 here, so Bernie can. We're trying to get done by 9:30 here, so let's move on. Do you have any other comments on 4 or 8? 4? 4, okay. In policy 4. We leave it at 4.
One other thing, we got something that Rob saw about a policy in Mississippi. I'm going to find out from them, get a copy of their policy to look at.
I
For the next meeting.
asked Tim to circulate it. I just happened to
I'm just saying, by the next meeting, I'll
Catch
have
it on
some
the news.
information for you about this policy that might be of
G-
interest.
given-
It's interesting that it's coming from backwater Mississippi, huh? We wouldn't have expected them to be on the front edge, leading
I'm
edge
saying
of that.
nothing to talk about tonight, but I'm saying I'm going to follow through and find out what they're doing.
I know some pretty sharp people that live down in Mississippi.
Yeah. We'll
But when it comes to education, that's not where you expect it, and it's delightful to see it. Huh?
I'm not. I don't.
Do you want-
I don't paint that with that brush.
Do you want to try to contact them? Is that what
I
you
said
said?
I'm volunteering to do it.
Good.
Bring it to the policy committee.
I think one person can do it. I mean, it doesn't have to be me, but I'm interested in following through on this.
Paul, on that other one, the first reading. I mean,
Which one? Which other
the
one?
do not resuscitate. I mean, I found the most bizarre regulation in my life that a parent says, "My kid has a heart attack," in whatever. I don't want you to make any life-saving efforts. I mean, I don't know the reality if this ever happened, but oh my God, for us to, see if something's on file, and I mean, putting us in the business of, making a decision like that rather than calling 911 and getting the kid out to Overlook Hospital. I mean, is this required? This type of?
Unfortunately, yes.
Why else do you think we'd have
It's a
it?
mandated
I don't know. It
policy.
sounds,
It also
our
doesn't-
nurse is supposed to have something on file that this kid, she makes a determination. She thinks he's brain dead, and she says,
In the absence of that, you would have to resuscitate.
well, the decision of,
It'll never
how you,
be-
I understand, but it's a very,
It sounds-
It
There's
puts
a down
Scarlet
trend,
D
but,
and R.
It also doesn't distinguish, I think we're going to have to take a look at this, because it doesn't
I think you
distinguish-
call the ambulance and let Overlook make that
It
decision.
doesn't distinguish, Rob, between if you're over 18 or under 18, there's a difference in how you're going to have to be handled here.
I'll bet it
So we'll take a look
never,
at that
never,
one.
Never,
Any
I
other
understand.
comments on
It's
policies?
the most bizarre thing I ever saw in my life.
All right, I'm done with the policy discussion then. Anything on community and business relations? By the way, we've also addressed the issue with regard to we were going to have policy under the board discussion, but we just handled that, so we're done with the policy discussion tonight. Anything on community and business relations?
Only thing in the policy is you want to bring that back to first reading again.
Yeah, we're going to bring back
Foreign exchange.
do not resuscitate and foreign exchange for another first reading. Okay, anything under, Laura's not here, anything on community and business relations that somebody wants to bring up?
Can you raise that?
Okay. Okay, hearing none. First opportunity for public comment. We're not done with you. We're not
You
done.
said when our discussion,
Board discussion next.
I thought you said we would reverse it.
No, we're
It
gonna
doesn't
do
make
board-
any
We're going to do
difference.
board
There's no one
discussion.
here, so it doesn't make any
We're
difference.
going to do the public, and then you're going to do
Okay.
board. Anything on first opportunity for public comment. Seeing there's no public here, except on the videotape, we will move on. There's a second chance for the public comment later on in this meeting, so if somebody walks in, they'll have a chance to talk at that point in time. We'll move on to board discussion. I had two items on there, one of which was board policy, and the other one was communication. I'd also put on there self-evaluation, but the good news is we've done the self-evaluations work. We've already done the board policy, so we have one item on communications. And Pete, I'm going to ask you to lead the discussion on the communications piece, okay?
Okay, and I take that as my opportunity to read
You're
your
on.
statement. Okay. I've asked for the opportunity to make a statement. Should be approximately 2.5 minutes. It is and always has been my belief, and I believe the belief of the people who elected me to the position of board member, that I will listen to their concerns and the concerns of anyone who is part of the Watchung Hills Regional High School community. This includes parents, citizens, students, and staff. As board members, we do not have direct management over any situation, but we do have oversight. Having said that, it needs to be said, no one in the Watchung Hills regional community should ever feel or ever be intimidated or fear reprisals for talking to a board member about any issue. Again, let me emphasize, this includes parents and staff. I am making this statement because statements have been made to staff by management that they are not to talk to board members. That statement is unacceptable, at least to me. Please know that I invite any and all to feel free to call me or talk to me about any issue that concerns them. As situations or problems develop, I and other board members can observe and exercise proper oversight. No one should ever be intimidated or fear retaliation. I have talked with Dr. Stromsland about this. We both feel that the proper chain of command needs to be followed. However, if anyone is uncomfortable with starting at the bottom of the chain of command for whatever reasons, Dr. Stromsland wants them to know her door is always open also, and she is willing to help you with your concerns by directing you to the proper or appropriate people. Because I feel so strongly about this intimidation retaliation issue, I will propose that a freedom of speech policy be included in our school policy. This policy would include punitive measures if anyone tries to prevent staff or parents from talking to board members. This is needed to ensure that individuals who work for Watchung Hills do not become zealous or feel overly empowered. In my opinion, there is no room at Watchung Hills for the self-empowered. Thank you for that opportunity.
Okay. Discussion?
I think it's a great set of ideas, Pete, and I know I felt somewhat the same way at times. And if we can make it part of our formal operating procedure, that we don't tolerate that, I think it's a step forward.
Any other comments? It's open discussion on this topic. I think it's important, both the open communications as well as the following of the chain of command, and realizing that, I think, and reinforcing that to the public and to the staff here, and whoever else wants to talk to us, or whoever has other items with regard issues on this, and they, it's
Can I
important
just
to
ask,
understand.
would the policy committee think of taking this topic and planning if other schools have it and how we would
It's
word this?
not a policy that we're aware, that I'm personally aware of. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I know I haven't seen it yet in other areas, so we will take a look at it.
Great.
We may not find anything. Any other comments? With that, we'll move on to action items. We have, just so you're aware of it, we have a lengthy addendum, walk-in agenda items, both in the Cs as well as 2 in the Ds, okay? Much of this has been discussed one way or the other. Can I get a resolution on A1 through A, or no, first of all, does anybody have any of the A's, A1 through A20 that they want to have pulled for separate voting? Rob?
You know, I have a question. Do I have to pull it to have a question? It's
No,
really,
you don't have to
it's
pull it
really
to
a
have a
brief question. It pertains to 11 and 12. Here's
You
my
can ask
question.
it after we've moved it. Is it going to, after you've moved it?
Whatever you want. Whatever. I just really have a question about them. I don't know what the. Can I ask a question?
Go
Which
after
one?
the
Go ahead.
move. and the
It's
second.
both. They're the same.
11 and 12?
Yeah, because they're
Go
really
ahead.
one's a tennis team trip and the other's
Right.
the wrestling. Here's my question about this: one trip is $1,200 paid by the student. The other is I don't know,
1,100.
$800 paid for the kids, something like that.
11 altogether.
What?
1,100 altogether.
Here's my,
plus three.
here's
your
my
question?
What do we do about situations with a kid who comes from more modest means that can't go? I mean, this is like the school trip, where, right? What do we do, Tom, in case of school trips? If you had a trip to Washington D.C. and family can't pay, what do we do?
We allow them. We allow them to go.
We have funds that are available to cover those sorts of situations. And then we have the kids perhaps work it off in the office and so on, so they feel it wasn't just a charity
Okay,
that they were working for.
So by extension, I'm asking here, I don't know all the kids in the wrestling team or this, but $1,100 is a lot of money. And do you even know, do the coaches go to you and say, Tom, there are 2 kids on the wrestling team or 2 kids on the tennis team? I mean,
May I clarify?
Yeah, I want to know how we handle that.
That's what we're paying, not what they're paying.
No, they're not paying. $1,100 is the overall thing. And that's covered individually by not the kids, by the club.
No, here it says for tennis.
Go to A11, Rob. 'cause that's
A11, excuse me, okay. The cost of trip,
$1,200 per student.
$1,200 per student to be paid by the student. Right?
Right, and I addressed that in my response to you. The second one, okay, that's an athletic event that's covered by...
The wrestling?
Yes,
So school pays for that trip.
The last sentence says the $1,100 is the cost of the board.
exactly, the $1,100.
$800 of that is for
Entrance.
transportation, and $300 is for entrance fees.
No, but wait. You got, it's 14, I don't say 14 students are going to the wrestling, right?
Just let me finish, because in addition to that, then the cost for the rooms is $560, and that's going to be paid for by the student athletes and the booster club. So that's to your point. What happens if a kid of means can't?
Oh, that's my point. I mean, on both these situations or whatever kids are going to, I mean, you don't want a kid to not go, to not participate, and a family feeling a shameful thing. Do you even do you have a rapport with the coaches that they'll say, Tom, the 2 kids in the wrestling team, they can only provide $300 of the $1,100. What do we do?
That would never be an issue.
And also,
Okay.
we have on file any applications for free or reduced lunch. Those would be indicators
Lunch
that...
where?
Free or reduced lunch. That's an
government
indicator of
No, I'm not
poverty.
talking about the school here. I'm talking about they're traveling.
No, I understand that, but if the student is on file having an application for free or reduced lunch, that means we know that, and if that student's on the wrestling team, that would be a student that we would know.
Well, I'm trying to make sure about this, and I know if a parent came to you, Tom, you would find a way to work it out.
Never.
I'm talking about a situation where, a kid, family feels a little shameful about it, and they're really, it's hurting them to come up with $1,100, and they're doing it, and they wouldn't normally go to you. I don't know how. It's not for you and Fran to interview the 12 kids on the wrestling team or the tennis team, but it's just, especially now, times are pretty tight.
Has anybody ever said they're not going on the trip as part of the team?
I think if Tom or the coaches became aware of a student who was struggling, that they would probably become aware of that, Ron. There's not a perfect answer on this.
No, there isn't. I'm just saying. So, maybe you could express to these coaches before these things, bring to our attention any situation you think, and we'll handle it discreetly and confidentially. There's a lot of you don't want a kid to feel shamed, or he's not with his buddies, and in we're a public institution. That's what I just want to make sure that kids feel part of it, and if they can't go because of money.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, I have
any other items of the A1 through A?
Peter has a question.
Second there, Mr. President.
Those two, 11 and 12.
You want to speak to A11, A12?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Tim's really
can I-
struggling with this.
Yeah.
He wants it to be moved first.
Just move in second.
Oh, okay.
Can we have a move in a second?
All right, I'm gonna
He's squirming
Stop.
over there.
Hold on.
All right,
Hold on. Sandy, I don't want to move in a second yet. I want to know, is there any? Please.
But I'm going to say minus 11 and 12 because that's what they want to talk to.
No.
Are there any other A's, please? Are there any other A's that we want to have pulled for separate discussion and separate voting? If we want to play 11, A, 12, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move in second, and then we can ask some more questions about it later on.
Pete, would you like? Why don't you pull those two if you have something you want to say
I
about them?
support him. I just want to ask a question.
Well, let's move it then. That's
Let's
right.
not pull them then.
Normally,
Let's not pull them.
Normally, the approach is, by Robert's rules, is you move it and you second it, and then it opens the floor for discussion.
Right.
Until you do that, it's actually not open for discussion, and we always invert that.
Cindy, move him.
All right, move it. And
So
then you
we'll
can-
just,
okay,
now,
all right, I'm
are there
moving.
any other? But we pull certain
No,
ones.
the answer is no.
No one wants it pulled.
Nobody wants to pull anything else.
Please stop. We pull certain ones. If somebody says, I want to vote separately on it, because what we normally do is we move a whole bunch of them and we vote all, everybody just votes for them all at one time.
Nobody wants
So
to
here's
pull
my
anything else.
question. Any ones on the A1s through A20 want to vote on separately? Can everybody vote on A1, A2?
No. Let me.
I know that Lou and Eric were out on June 2nd. I know, Eric, you were out on the 16th.
Right.
So,
And Robin and
and
Sandy
Rob,
were out
you
on
and Sandy
30th.
were out on the 30th.
We have
So
to pull those two.
They don't have to be
Well,
pulled.
we could you'll just be voted
Understand.
Move
separately.
them separately.
You just can't
We'll
vote
just,
on
we'll move them all at the same
Vote
time. You
separately.
can vote, you can abstain on those ones that you got. Now, I'll point out to you also in A3, 5332, which is a do not resuscitate, and 5111, which are the foreign exchange, because we had a lot of discussion on those. I'm going to pull those so we can bring them back for second read at some future time, okay? Because I don't think they're quite ready for first read. All right, can I get a resolution in on A1 through A20?
All right, I'll move from A1 to A20
I'll
minus
second.
the two that you want to pull out.
No,
of the
no, just
policy.
vote, you're moving them all.
Move
You're
them
moving them all.
Well, how are you taking
Minus
those
the
two
two
out?
policies.
Which ones, A11,
Those two
A12?
policies
This
that
is
you want.
not
the two policies.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correcting A3
Yes.
to be,
Yes,
to have those two policies,
just on
okay.
those two policies.
Those two policies,
So
right.
otherwise,
second
they're
that.
all moved with the exception of those two policies
Policy.
that have been removed.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. Pete, you had to say something, you want to say something about A11, A12?
Yeah, only that somewhere's in my memory, which is faulty at times, most of the time I'm sure, that the NJSIA regulations may prohibit funding some of this by the booster club. If that is in fact the case, then we can't do it.
We'll check
but
it.
but if it's permitted, then
We'll check it.
yeah, please.
I think they
Pete,
can.
I have their handbook easily accessible to me, and I'll look at it
Okay.
also tonight.
It talks
I
about
can't tell you how
funding-
close it is to
might
me.
be entrance fees, Peter. Might be entrance fees.
Yeah, but it's, somewhere it says funding for certain activities by booster clubs is prohibited.
It might be entrance fees.
Whatever.
But they're going to play.
I
for
think I
hotel.
looked at it recently on that topic, and I didn't think I saw something that was going to affect it, but I'll take another look on it, I promise you. And I think I have the most recent one. Any other discussion on A1 through A20? Jerry?
Yeah, I had sent some questions over to the administration by email, so I just wanted to make them because that's also a public record, just to the questions and the answers. 814 and 818, I asked if they were budgeted, and the answer was yes, they were budgeted. And A18 is actually at some savings in terms of altering the school. A17, I asked if it was a typo, and the answer was yes on those two, the A section.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Ms. Fechner?
Yes, except I'm abstaining on A1 and A2 on the minutes.
Appropriately. You can figure it out and just
Thank
note
you.
it.
Mr. Horwitz?
Yes, same as Sandy, abstaining on 1 and 2.
June 30th.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Sun?
Yes, except the A1, A2.
June 2nd and June 16th.
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
By the way, can you carry those where you don't have a quorum? 3 of us, how can you vote on 1 and 2 if by 3 of us abstaining, you have only 3 people voting for it?
It's the majority of those present.
Don't need a...
Right, you have 7.
Not of the full board on the minutes. No.
Okay.
You have 7.
I'd like to move D1 since there's nothing else.
Thank you. Can I get a second on B1?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion on B1?
I just asked a question on that and then about whether, that was a full-out program or what kind of program it was. And the answer was it was a language immersion program scheduled for them as a class, and then they take a regular schedule. And the other thing was within the block scheduling where the rotating drop, still going to be done the same way. No issues in terms of...
It'll just move like everything else.
Any other discussion on B1? Do I need a roll call vote on that?
Why don't we do that?
Can I get a roll call vote on B1?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yeah.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have a portfolio of Cs. It starts on C, goes from C1 through C29 that was in the original agenda, and then on the walk-ins we have C30 through C44. Are there any in the Cs that somebody wants to pull for purposes of voting separately?
The one that includes the salaries.
Which one is that?
I'm just looking for it real quickly.
The non-affiliates?
The non-affiliates.
Pardon?
It's on the petition.
That's C44 is the non-affiliates.
C44, Pete, on the addendum.
Okay, C44 will be pulled for
Walk-in.
separate. Is there any other ones that people want to pull for separate voting purposes?
C21.
C21. I'm just trying to get to it. We're pulling C21 for separate voting. Okay. Any others? Can I get a motion on C1 through C44 minus C21 and C44?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have moved and seconded all the Cs except for C21 and C44. Okay, any discussion on any of those?
Yes.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, on C21.
We're not talking about C21. It hasn't been moved and seconded.
these are the
Everything
the
else.
ones we didn't. Pardon me. No, retract
I
that.
have some questions again that I asked.
You want to vote separately on that?
I asked whether John Suarez would be the $500 stipend. It was just overlooked, and because he's a salary, he does
It's
not
only a
get that.
question. Why don't you let it stand?
Um,
Ask a question.
This whole
C7
thing is 20 minutes.
is asked whether it was a budgeted position. The answer it is a budgeted position. C10 and C12, I was curious. I knew there was one requirement.
Because that
And the answer is one
Board of Land
was a replacement and one is there for
road
growth.
meeting ended early because there's no more of the electrical.
C15, because we approved that previously as a replacement teacher, and is now on a tenure track since the teacher replaced is not returning. I think I said that correctly.
Yes.
C20, and there's another item also having to do with a volunteer coach, whether or not they get background checks, and the answer is yes, but I saw nothing on here indicating they were doing the background checks, and usually I thought football starts in the
August.
fall, earlier than school, so I was curious as to why we wouldn't approve background checks also at this time.
You mean the emergent?
The emergent thing, because they're not actually being hired, but they were sent for their fingerprints. Their fingerprinting, they were sent to Sagamore.
Okay.
Emergent hiring.
Yeah, they're not being hired, they're volunteering.
Right, okay.
Any other comments or questions on the Cs except for 21 and 44? Hearing none. Can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion's
Okay.
carried.
Rob, you want to move?
21?
Can we do 44 first because I've got to
Yes.
break for a few minutes?
Sure.
9:30.
44.
Okay,
I yield
hold on.
to
Can we
Bernie.
move C44 then?
Sure.
It's been moved by Bernie. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Discussion on C44.
Yes, I'd like to just say that I apologize for being away for the last 10 days. I haven't seen this before. But in a quick look, and comparing it to the kind of philosophy we used in creating salary guides for secretaries and recently negotiated, I think that we need a lot of work on some of these numbers. And let me just tell you the problem I have is that for secretaries who are at the top of the range, they got a 2% raise. For those that are on the bottom, probably get a 5% raise because they have to move up towards the end of the range. I do believe that our confidential secretary group forms an informal salary guide or salary range, and I would like to propose that we defer this and really make sure that we have a consistent philosophy, because right now it clashes with the approach that we've done.
Well,
on
except
the others.
I've got to say, we kind of talked a little bit about that, and these are a performance-based group of people. They're not so much on guides or steps. There is really no formal step or guide. And I understand what you're saying, but just so you know that the other philosophy is that it's paid based upon performance. So, I mean, the goal that I sent them back with was do not exceed the amount of increase that the contract provided for. So, but I understand what you're saying, so it's certainly
And I just
something
think
we talked about.
this particular display makes it look like we have a 2.4% increase.
No, but we did not.
I think that has to be, you have to look at the people who are staying in the same position, and I believe it should stay at an average out at 4%. So some should be less than 4, and some should be greater than 4. And I don't think these numbers will do that. There are too many at the 5.2% level.
It's this one that you're looking at. I think you're looking at an old one.
There was one in the folder for me tonight that I got.
The Personnel
Well, maybe
Committee
it's the
got a
same.
separate sheet.
It says July 23rd, and that's the date today. That's what I'm working
Okay.
from.
The Personnel Committee got the separate sheet.
But I would like to,
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? What is the percentage increase that is being proposed as an aggregate of the non-affiliated?
4.45%.
but,
Is that what this
but
added
that's
up?
a misleading number.
Well, just a second. I just asked.
Okay.
I
No,
hope
if
it's
you
not,
look-
because
if
I asked
you
what the
look
average
at
was, and that
the
should be a
total
calculable number.
The total dollar money being increased over the current base is 4.45%. There's some other things going on that we talked about excluding, such as if we eliminate a position, you can't count that as lowering the average increase. But when you
Right.
measure the total dollars
Okay.
being added to the current salary, it came in at 4.45%.
Let me just give you a little
Pete
more
has a
background.
question. He's been patient.
If I could.
Just a second. Let me get Pete
Go
in
ahead,
here,
Pete.
okay? 'Cause he's
Well, it's
been
going to speak to, I think, your point, Bernie. The philosophy that we went into in negotiations, that we would have a top number of percentage. As I look at this sheet, there are 11 of 14 people who exceed the 4.45 that was a number bantered about in the negotiations committee. So whenever the number says we have an average increase of 4.4 or whatever, if you look at this sheet of paper, 11 of the 14 people presented are making 4.5 or better, which far exceeds the recommended and philosophical number that the negotiating team fought very hard for and worked toward a way of the board and the school should start, regardless of what happened in the past. And that was, I think, the philosophy that we tried to perpetuate, or at least initiate. And this throws that right out the window.
Can I clarify the 4.45 number as well?
Please.
The 4.45 includes about 0.5% of what I call salary guide correction for past sins. It's a makeup. So if you take that out, that's kind of the cost to the board because things were done wrong. We really are at the 4% level when you remove that correction. With certain categories that were employees, there was no teacher salary guide correction needed. So I think that the bogey ought to be 4% because that happens to be also the state cap number. Now,
that's
I'm
the
just giving
question.
you the background. That 4.45 includes something that is not necessary for other categories.
But also, when you look at salaries of teachers, they not only go up by the pot of money, but they also move on the step. So a teacher can often not just go up by 4 points, because that's what the guide goes up by, the pot of money goes up.
When you add up all the different movements, the total cost was 4.45. When you take out the salary guide correction stuff, which is past sins, the total cost to the board is 4% when you go through that. It's not higher than 4%, it's 4%.
It's not a salary guide. Just bottom line, it's not a salary guide. What it is it's a
to try to bring this to resolution. Bernie, what's your specific request? You want to defer the vote on this? You want to?
No, I feel that way. Pete feels that way. We're 2 out of 7. I don't know how anybody else feels, but
I'm
I
just
think
asking I'm not asking for a polling. I'm asking what's your resolution?
my
What do you want to change?
resolution is I think I would like to be able to prepare something for you that says this is why it's inconsistent and here's what I propose.
It's not a salary guide. It's based on a recommendation of the superintendent and performance-based. It is not a salary guide. What we have done here is we've stayed within the dollars allotted in the 4% budget and distributed those dollars according to employee performance at a rate of increase that was appropriate to that employee's performance. And that we listened to the chair of the personnel committee. We stayed within the recommended, the pattern of increase for all staff at 4.45%. And this is solely performance-based. It is not based on a salary guide or any need for salary guide correction. These dollars are allocated in the budget, and they're actually less than the total dollars allocated in the budget to give the people who do the lion's share of the work here appropriate raises according to their performance. And that's simply it.
Okay. Now we're working, I just want to make sure I understand something. We're working off of this green sheet, and this is what is being proposed. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so everybody's on, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, that this is what we're looking at. Bernie, you're proposing that we
I'm proposing that in aggregate, the raise ought to be 4%, not 4.45.
That's not what was budgeted.
What?
That's not, those dollars, this is less than 4%. The total aggregate dollars are less than 4%.
Not if what Pete says is true, that 11 out of the 14 are over 4.5.
We've done the math, and Mr. Stiles has done the spreadsheet on Excel. This total comes to 4.45. Of the dollars budgeted, we've only used 2.4% of the dollars budgeted. Is that correct?
Yes.
That has
So
nothing.
that is
There's
less
only one
money
person
than we
under-
budgeted for this group of
There's
people.
only one person under 4.
Three.
There's
Three.
another, I think, we're not really talking about the same things here.
No.
Because I think that I think that when you're looking at the total budget, there was other money that was allocated in that budget.
Right.
Because there were other people in that pool. Those people are
right.
no longer in that pool. Excuse me. And so, yes, indeed, the statement is correct that it's lower than what's in the budget. But the real question is, what is the average increase that's being provided to these people that are in this pool? So if you look at it,
The average increase is 4.45%.
so if you look at this average, this green sheet, what is the average increase across these? I'm sorry, I can't talk any louder.
Wait a few minutes, it'll stop.
So Tim, if you were to look at these, what is the average across all these increases? I see numbers that range from 4.7, 5.2, 9.06, 5.2, 5.2, and on down 3.44. Is this looks to me like it doesn't average out to 4.45.
It goes above that.
Pardon?
It will go above that.
I can't hear you.
It will go, if you add these all together, just the folks on this list, it'll go above 4.45.
Okay.
And that's what we're saying.
That's what Pete said.
Wait,
I'm
are you
saying-
saying there was a pool of, let's say, 40 people, and if you took 4% of that, it'd be $100,000. Now, this is only a pool of 20 people, and if the collective increase here is less than 100,000 because there aren't people in this pool. Is that what you're saying?
There's one less.
Is that what we're
One
saying?
less, but yeah. That's
You're right.
And that's
What
been-
you're saying
you wanna
is absolutely
Look at
correct.
it this way, it's been divvied out.
The question is,
So you're using a larger sampling of a pot of money
By one.
to calculate salaries on a smaller pool of people.
By
That's
one.
correct.
By
That was-
1 month, not
The
20.
personnel committee directed you to go back and make sure that the people getting increases, the total average is 4.45%, just for those group of people.
I think the goal, as I understand the
No.
Personnel Committee, was...
Say that again? Sorry.
If you take the pool of people and added the salary, that total increase should be no more than 4.45% for that group of people.
Yeah, but
No, you-
But
no,
that position's still going to get filled. The one that is not included here will still get filled.
But it's not to be calculated
not
and included
calculated.
as an increase in that, because that person will be salaried at some level, which we don't know what it will be.
But
at
it will
this
not
time.
impact the 4.45%.
But
We just to clarify, on the Personnel Committee, we reduced one position here on each of the years, backed out that number,
That's what we do.
and that increase was to hit 4.45%.
Right. So that it was apples to apples, not apples
Now
to
that
oranges.
that is exactly what we did here. Now, if you wanted us to do something else,
Yeah, then maybe we misunderstood each other.
then that's
on the-
that. But I'm just telling you, I followed exactly
That's what she told us
on the
to do.
sheet
And
what was
that's-
asked.
And that
Yeah,
still
but
accounts.
do we all-
That still
And I'm not.
accounts
You know,
for-
I'm just telling you that's exactly what it was asked.
That still accounts for the position. We can still fund the position that's vacant without impacting the total dollars.
You know,
I think what I hear the board saying, I think what I hear being said, not the board, but what I've heard is that if you were to take the people that are on this green piece of paper and look at what their average, and just on this page alone,
Yes.
nothing else, figure out what the average increase is, the target should be 4.45.
And it is.
It can't.
No,
Mathematically, it
that's
cannot.
that's not the green sheet is.
But
No,
no,
it's
you're saying that,
referring
but
to
that's
the
not
green.
that's not what this is.
Yeah, and we don't have the extra
was the
technician
intent of the
position
direction.
on here.
The
That's what's
technician.
throwing it off.
The extra technician is not included.
Right.
That position is
That-
currently
I
vacant.
understand that.
But there's no increase there.
Right.
There's a 0% increase.
Right.
So there's
That's the difference between the two.
and there's 0%
And that-
increase for that.
That's correct, and that was apportioned into all of the salaries.
So
Let me make this simpler. If I add up all the numbers on
There's
2000,
there's one budgeted position of $38,000.
That
There's
is
no
not
increase
included.
in next year for $38,000.
The same.
So you're not seeing that position on here, but there's a $38,000 with a zero next to it.
Right. Zero change.
And that's what's bringing the average down to 4.4.
Right.
that's not what we're trying.
That's what the calculation
But that's-
Is
is.
that
And
what you
that's
wanted to
the-
happen?
I don't think that's what I want to
So here's what I think. Here's what I think the
Now,
exercise
but just so we're
is.
clear,
Well,
though.
yeah, I
See,
understand.
I
Okay.
understand what you did.
As clear as we can be with
I think if you
noise.
Okay.
you have the list of people that are here, if you add up the salaries in 07, 08, and then you look at the salaries proposed for 08, 09, and you add all those up, the increase should be 4.45% and no more across the aggregate of those people that are here.
I think you got to go back and change
Well, that's
the numbers a
different than
little
what
bit.
the personnel
I'm
committee.
just saying. I understand that, but I'm understanding what Jerry is saying is
Well,
now.
that's kind of what I wanted to happen.
Okay.
I didn't do a very good job explaining it. before.
Okay.
So based on that,
If that person has a 0% increase, what difference would it make? The salary is
Can
still
we
budgeted.
table it?
The salary is, well, these people then are not going to get paid for another month.
They get paid on their old salary base.
That's correct, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think
We do it all
that's
the
fair.
there's a
I think the
because there's a friend. There's a aside from just saying we have a budget, we have a pool of $50,000. So it's almost like saying, in a warped way, you said there's 20 people, no one's getting a pay increase, and Mary Smith is getting an 80% salary increase, and therefore, but the whole increase averages 3.6%. But hold on.
I think the
There's
point
a,
is
but
Rob-
just
It's
wait, let me.
really confusing at
I
first.
think that Rob has been, the point has been made on this. Okay, I think Tim understands and Fred understand what the personnel committee was actually requesting, and I think that's what they're going to try to go back and do. So just let's hold it there. Okay?
I just say my
We're going to have to leave. I want to get this vote decide on this before he's going to have to go. Okay.
Well, the question is there a sense that we should defer this one? Or do you want to vote and then let us vote our conscience?
whatever you'd like, but I prefer not to
think
defer.
that-
Jerry, what would you prefer to do?
I would prefer, because these people are awaiting their raises. I mean, that's one of the issues. We held off on them until the contract was settled. That was a goal. Specifically wait until the contract was settled so we knew what the target would be. I think we direct them to take this group of people, let them allocate that money the way they want to at 4.45%. They can judge your performance, but no more than that. Spread the 4.45 over the base, however they choose, and let that be done.
I'm fine with that.
Because
I'm
these
all right
people
with
are
that.
awaiting their raises, and we put it off
And
for a couple
honestly,
months
it will
now.
not change the outcome here
Yeah.
very much.
It has to change
No.
the outcome here.
I want to be clear on this. So,
It will-
so when we go back, you're saying take green sheet, take the
sheet.
base of 0708,
Yes,
multiply that base by 4.45%,
yes,
and then divvy that out as
Yes.
we see here.
yes.
Of the people on the sheet,
different
not the
than-
people who are not on the
It's
sheet.
much different.
Just to the people on the sheet.
Just the people on the sheet.
Right, if you had another 50,000
Correct.
bucks
Just
of
the
people on the sheet, you can't
Saying
factor
remove
that
the
in.
technician, remove.
I
If you
think
want
that
to give
that's
somebody 9%, you got to give somebody else much less than.
No, I think there's
Is that-
no, I think, aren't you saying no one's getting more than 4.5%?
No, that's not what's being
That's not
said.
what you're saying.
That's not what's being said. The
Say it
average is 4.45.
Pete would like that, but
Pete would like what?
No, I would say the highest percentage raise would be 4.45.
No,
personally,
that's
they're
not-
asking me a
We're
question.
allowed to discuss that, Fran.
I'm sorry, no, I'm
They're
saying but that's
asking
not
me-
what we were saying. I just want to be sure that you
But
understand.
they asked me what I would
I'm
suggest.
sorry, misunderstood.
I would suggest 4.45. And if you take the base salary, the salary of 207, and add it of these people, and you add 4.5 as the top number. that
We
would
don't
be
even
fine.
do that with the teachers, though, because the teachers don't have an average of, they have an average of 4.45, but the maximum is
I
not
understand.
4.45.
I understand.
So I don't
But
think it's fair.
We can't because it's in the contract.
I understand.
So we are limited to say that the teacher on the top got X number of dollars in. We can't do that because it's in the contract. Here it is not. And just so, and again, I say this because I've said it before. Last year, this same procedure caused a heck of a lot of unrest and discomfort.
Because it's
This,
performance-based.
I hear
Can
you.
we-
Frank, can I just say to Pete's point? Wait, I just want to make a hold on, Frank. I just want to make a point. This is like let's look in the real world. We're in the worst economic times in a long time. Okay, there are people getting laid off. People's homes are being foreclosed. I read in the paper, oh, someone's getting a 9% increase at Watchung Hills. I just got laid off. Whether we have the money or don't have the money, I think there should be an absolute. The contract's a contract. If we negotiate with the teachers, they get 10%. Well, if we were stupid enough to do that, then they're entitled to their contract. That's the law. But to me here, I like the idea of an absolute limit, and not everyone gets it. I mean, it's a reflection on the real world here. We are there are people working in the private sector. They're getting laid off. They're getting no increases. They're getting decreases. And Watchung Hills, I'm a taxpayer here. My taxes went up $3,000. People getting 5, 6, 7, 8% raises. It's outrageous.
Same as your teachers.
Well, you know what?
Just
That was bargain.
stop.
This wasn't bargain.
Rob, we have a proposal here, which is, that came from, I think, Bernie and
I
Rob,
think what
which
Rob
was,
was saying is if there ought to be a maximum percentage raise that this board would recommend, and I think 5.5% is probably the maximum.
How much?
And we ought to,
These
5.5,
raises-
and we ought to
4.5.
average to the 4.45 like Jerry thought he had requested.
These
I would say that what I would agree to is I think we ought to average it to the 4.45, which is what we've done with all the rest of the staff here, and let the administration decide how to divvy that up. I would be willing to do
These
that.
raises, as I said, are performance-based. These people are the heavy lifters in the district. One thing that no one is paying any attention to in this discussion is the fact that one of the goals that was set by the board, which I agreed to, was to look at some reorganization and redistribution of the staff. What we did here is when we put these people forward for their increment for this coming school year, we did some reorganization, which was discussed in Personnel Committee, which is not being discussed here, which is what allowed the pot to be distributed a little differently because of the reorganization that we did with some positions. We kept the technician position at 0%, and we took the funds that were set aside for the human resources position, and we distributed it differently. So I was charged to fulfill my goals, which I did, in terms of developing a recommendation based on performance. Every year that I have been here in this position and every year prior, the board has directed me to use the funds available for merit raises for these people. These people carry the lion's share of the work here in the district. They do not ever question when they come in or when they leave or what needs to be done. The discretion of the superintendent needs to be respected in this process. And not simply to say, because we did this for the teachers, because that's a collective bargaining agreement, that pertains in the same fashion to these people who are not part of a collective bargaining agreement, especially when we have respected the process and stayed within the dollars that were budgeted in good faith by this board and voted on by this community and available to pay salaries for the staff that work here above and beyond many of the staff that are in a collective bargaining unit.
Fran,
So we have a
Fran, but until this point, wait, Fran, wait a second. No, but she's saying something. I'm not. She's done. Okay.
I'm done. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I mean, Fran, we are the final arbiters in whether and to what extent they're pay raises. I mean, if you make, you're going to these employees and saying, here's what it's going to be, you know what? That might not be. We are the people who vote. It's our responsibility. And whether there is, to say a budget passed and I included, 5, 6, 7, 8% raises, that's where we get it from. That doesn't mean that this board has to act that way. We have a different set of values, perhaps, a different set of responsibilities, and a different set of, what drives our conscience or our abilities. I understand people are hardworking, but you know what? It's Watchung Hills High School is not an isolated economic entity from the rest of the world. It is tough out there, Fran. People are really, hurting, and people, can't pay taxes in my town, and then to, Echo Sentinel can say, well, we had a pot of money that just because you voters approved it, we're going to give you 5, 6, 9% pay increases. I don't go for it.
Highlight that for the teachers.
We have a motion.
Well, you know what?
Can we get a motion? Stop. Please, guys, come on.
To say also.
Can we get a motion on this specific so that we have a topic that we're going to discuss as opposed to just rambling around on it right now? We have a motion here that was moved. We have a motion that was moved and seconded, which had to do with, which is C-44, which had to do with approval salary increases as listed on this piece of paper. We've been a lot of discussion. Do we have a specific change to the motion that you want to make?
Should we vote on this one first?
No.
No, we can amend this one. What we can do is take C-44, which has been moved and seconded, and somebody can make a motion to amend it, and then we can vote on that amendment, and then we can decide if we want to vote on the whole thing.
Well, I'd like to move to amend it so that the level is capped at 4.45%, consistent with the association contract.
Jerry has moved that we cap the increase at 4.45% increase.
Of the superintendent to do their job and decide how that money should be allocated based upon performance.
Okay, that's a motion. Do I have a second on that motion?
I want to.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I don't understand his motions. I'm asking.
Okay,
average.
What?
The average
Does that mean? Can anyone get more than 4.45%?
Yes, it does.
But that means somebody else has to get less.
Okay. Then vote against it.
That has been moved. Can I get a second on that?
Yes,
You give
I'll
somebody
second
more,
that.
you give somebody less.
This is a move. This is a motion to amend the original C-44 so that we have it now at a 4.45%, which is consistent with what was given to the rest of the staff. I don't really want to say given. That's not quite right. But between 2007 and 8 and 08-09. Okay, that's what is on the table. Do I have a second on that?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded. Do I have any discussion on that?
Just a
Clarification.
What you'd be voting on is
The total dollars.
the total dollar amount, and you're leaving the discretion to us to point to salaries.
I assume
To allocate the funds
Okay.
not to
But
exceed
the board has to
4.45%.
approve each individual's salary to give us the authority to pay them. I just want to make that clear.
That would be the attachment. That would be the
Then
actual
how
salary.
we can't do it tonight.
Well, I'm just
No, I'm
suggesting
saying
that.
we could do it. We could do it if we had time to go to the spreadsheet and do it. But or you could say, approve the motion the way you've said it, and that we will then pay the people according to the salaries that we, when we figure out the,
And you'd have to bring it back to us in August to show us.
I mean, it's, I'm struggling with the idea of, we can set the salaries and communicate obviously to the board, but you still need to approve these salaries.
So
Let's make that clear.
Technically, we're not going to be able to approve this tonight anyway.
That's correct.
Well, I don't know how, I mean, I'm just trying.
That's where we are on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the authority to pay.
All right, so then let's change C44 to the point where it's just a direction that that's what we want, which is a 4.45% overall increase.
So in the next 20 minutes, you can come back with the right numbers.
I'd rather not do that. It's going to undoubtedly end up in here.
Can I leave?
You have, well, you want to leave while we do executive sessions, that's quick.
We're directing them to,
Up to you.
if you want to do that, if you want to try to do that, we can pull this one and put it on hold until you come
We
back.
go across the hall.
It's up to you, Tim.
I mean, honestly,
But you have to understand that with this process, some people will get more of a percentage and some people will get less. If the average is 4.45.
Theoretically, right, Fran? Theoretically, I'm not saying you do this. If you have a pot of $50,000, whatever the pot is, I don't know what it comes to. You could give Mary Smith a $50,000 raise,
And everybody else
and
gets
everyone
zero.
gets
Theoretically,
nothing.
yes, that will not happen in this case.
But again, to Tim's point, we need to actually approve each individual salary.
So we can't.
I'm saying some are going to be more than 4.45 and some are going to be less than 4.45. That's what the meaning
That's
of
what we're
average
saying.
is.
We're saying is an average of 4.45 on the aggregate of the people that are on this screen list.
So that
Now, we have, because Tim has pointed out that we have to approve the individual salary increases, we're not going to be able to approve that. I want to leave here with a clear understanding, though, that this board agrees with the approach that has been proposed, that has been moved and seconded, that's on the table right now, which is on an aggregate, we have a 4.45% increase.
Well, that's what the vote will be.
That's what the vote's going to be. The motion C44 has been modified to basically read that resolve the Board of Education approves an aggregate increase of 4.45% increases for the non-affiliated staff members for the 2008-2009 school year, and that the administration will bring back then a detailed list of that at the next meeting, at which we'll then approve the overall staff.
I second that.
That's the move and second at this point. That's the way this motion reads. Can I get a? Are you with that?
I'm okay with that.
All right. Can I get a roll call vote on this? Pardon?
I made the motion.
All right. Can I get a roll call vote on the amendment as I just kind of read it, and then we're going to vote on C44 totally? Can I get a roll call vote on the amendment to C44?
Can you give me the language on that amendment?
I'll help you write it later. But it has to do, just so you understand, what it is saying is that the aggregate increase from 2007 to 2008 to 2008-2009 is a total of 4.45% increase overall
Of this
For those
list
on
on that list of people.
Okay.
And that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
And we're directing you to come back with a list at the next meeting to allocate those funds and across those, 15 people, okay?
Okay.
And that's the amendment to C44 as it's read. We're going to then vote on the amendment, and then we have to vote on that on C44 as amended. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, so can we get a roll call vote on the amendment to C44, which is what we're basically going to vote on later on anyway, but can we get a vote on the roll call vote on that?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
I tend to vote yes, but I want to ask the question. That doesn't mean that any list proposed to us is going to be accepted. We have the option, as we do now, to see
You
this
can
year.
vote against the list when it
Next
gets
time.
proposed. You can vote against the total list if you want to.
Next time.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if it's within the
Okay, as long as I have that option.
Follow the directive.
As long as I have that option. So, in the spirit of moving ahead,
Thank you.
we'll vote yes for this one.
Mrs. Vector?
I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to make a comment because I've always been told that the one opportunity we have to recognize people who have done outstanding work would show up in this particular non-affiliated group, and the fact that they're not protected by the union, that they don't have the same loud voices speaking for them. They don't have the county and the state behind them. But this is a group that you would truly try your very best to find the dollars to show them that they're appreciated in their work. I'm so in favor of merit, and particularly a group of people who have served us so well. I feel very bad to see us fighting over small percentages on this. There is the money. I know that there are people out there who are hurting, as Rob has put out. I also know there are many people who have very protected jobs and are doing fine who have nothing to do with this particular list. So what the economics of people who are hurting doesn't enter into the appreciation for me of these people.
Sandy, how are you voting?
I voted. I said,
You voted yes. Okay. Keep going.
Mr. Horowitz?
No.
No. Okay. Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yagan?
Yes, and I'd just like to say that if any raise is higher than 6% in the list that I see at the next meeting, I'll vote against it because I believe that in the economic situation we're in, a 9% is simply an obscene raise for anybody, given the world we're in.
All right.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now, in the future, I'll just tell you something.
Motions.
Now we have to vote on C-44 totally, because the trouble is we had C-44 as it was written. We had to make an amendment to, so what you voted on was the amendment. You're basically voting on the same thing, so can we just move through this pretty quickly?
No, I just want to make one comment now. The reason you sold the 9%, to be clear, is to make two people consistent. So it's merit-based, but also the fact that the two positions are very comparable in nature. And that's just so you understand where that came from.
But sometimes if you're in a position a little less long than somebody else, then you have a chance to catch up. You don't have to bring everybody up to the same level. That's not the way it's done in industry.
We can discuss the specifics, because now we're discussing a list that doesn't even exist anymore. So let's just hold off on that discussion of specifics until the next meeting.
Well, I won't be at the next meeting, so I want to make sure I'm making the points now. And the other thing is, if we support the goal here, I'd hate to see next meeting again, because I won't be here, to not have us now endorse the philosophy, and maybe if you want to direct them to limit it, but to go ahead and say next meeting that no, these people aren't getting their raises and have to put it off another meeting to September when school starts, I think would be a bad thing. So I think whatever we decide tonight should give a very clear direction to what people will support at the next meeting, because there's some people who aren't even here that might be at the next meeting. For example, Laura, other people that aren't here. So, I don't want to see this repeated in August and have us not with another resolution to this item.
All right. We have the original C-44 moved and seconded. Can I get a roll call vote on that? It's essentially the same vote. Just remember what I'm saying. It's just we had to move it because it wasn't written the way we wanted it. We had to amend it.
It could be amended now to say there'll be a cap too. If somebody thinks that that's the appropriate thing, it still could be amended.
Can I get a roll call vote on the C-44 that's in front of us right now?
I don't know what we're voting.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either, Paul.
Hey guys, listen, this is not that hard. We had C-44, which was approved salary increases for non-affiliated staff, which was this list. We had a long discussion on deciding that this list was not what we wanted. So then, because we had a motion that had been moved and seconded, the only thing you can do is either throw it out or we can amend it. Jerry made an amendment to it, but then you have to vote on the amendment to the original motion separately. Okay?
Could the amendment be another motion?
And that's what it was. He made a motion that we amended so that it put a 4.45% increase in there. That's what we voted on the amendment.
But I don't think that is my concept of what happened. Because, again, maybe I just don't understand. So then what we should have, in my opinion, done is voted this one down and voted a new amendment.
But we had the motion. We could have done it that way, but it's sometimes simpler simply to amend it. That's what we did. We amended it so it now reads a 4.45% average increase.
But that's not what I'm agreeing to. Then I would change my vote to a no.
But why do we need to do this in as much as we're going to come back the next time with a different list?
Providing direction to the administration on what increase we want.
Okay, we gave that. Should we just vote this one down now?
Well, you can amend it again.
Just table it.
Why don't we just table this one?
We haven't voted on C-44 yet, guys. All we did was vote on the amendment to C-44.
So you're voting of a combined vote now. This is the C-44 that includes the
It's Robert's Rules and Orders. If you want to suspend them, we can do that. We just move on. Because I think everybody agreed that we wanted a 4.45% average increase.
Well, everyone
across-
did not agree. I didn't agree.
You did. You voted no on it.
And again,
And you said,
but I know what I said.
agree
but
with
I'm-
it.
I know what I said, but I was under the impression maybe
there's
it
going to be a
was.
list that comes back at the next meeting.
Well, my first original statement was I don't believe anybody should get more than 4.45. That was my original statement.
Okay, then if you want to, now as Jerry said, we can now say we're going to put a cap on whatever increase we want in there.
I just don't believe that's fair, because this decision is rendered by the superintendent based on direct observation by the business administrator, direct observation of performance. If you're going to say to give them a 4.45% cap, it means everybody gets the same raise. That is not appropriate. That's not appropriate.
Well, it'd be 4.45 or less.
Yes.
Nobody can get better by doing better, which to me is wrong too.
I think that's sending the wrong message.
What?
If you
That
cap
they-
it at 4.45%.
That doesn't matter.
Or what's the message you
that
send
don't get-
where you can get a 20% increase?
You don't get
I didn't
tenure.
say 20 was appropriate either.
Did anyone say anything about 20%?
Well, I see 9%.
9% was to make two positions equivalent because the
Well,
prime position
but that's your
was the same.
opinion.
It's not my
It's
opinion.
not my
It's
opinion,
what
it's
we
what they
talked
was
about in the
told,
meeting.
what was discussed.
We have a different viewpoint, and some of us had said in this economy, and with lots of people struggling, no one in this school should the board should be voting a
Except
9%
your
pay
teachers.
increase.
Stop. The question is, do we want to direct the administration to put a cap on the maximum increase for the non-affiliated?
Well, that's another motion then, Paul.
That's my question to you guys.
So I'll make that motion.
What's the cap you want on it?
Cap is 4.5. No increase to exceed 4.5% of the current salary.
Okay, so Rob, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we cap it now at 4.5%. So
Per
now
person,
we have
not the pool per person.
Pardon?
Per person,
Per
not
person.
the pool.
So we have a pool. The way this motion reads right now, we have a pool increase of 4.45%, and it's capped at the individual at 4.5. Okay.
It's been moved and seconded.
It's been we're now going to vote on this amendment that's going to cap it at 4.5. Can I get a roll call vote on the amendment that has been moved and seconded that we cap any individual increase at 4.5%?
Mr. Binder?
No.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
No.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes?
Mr. Sun?
No.
Is that a no?
No.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
No. I think that's the right way to vote.
That means the motion is defeated.
I'd like
amendment is
to,
defeated.
how about an amendment at 5%?
Oh, stop it. Oh, just stop it. This is getting ridiculous.
Ernie, come on.
This is getting ridiculous.
You can say
I'm
that.
sorry,
That's
Fran,
the
we're
point.
the people who talk to taxpayers.
Oh, and I
Just
talk
drop
to
it.
taxpayers
Just
as
drop
That's
well.
why you
Fran.
should say to them, they get no more than the teachers, period, on average. Some teachers get more.
We've
You
already
don't
said-
cap- You
we've
don't
already
cap
said-
individual teachers at 4.45%. You cap the pool of money. Then the guide adjusts where the people go to, and some get more and some get less, but the average goes up at 4.45. And we said the same thing.
I think I've said what I have to do about the 9% number. I think that's obscene raise in this today's economy, and maybe Fran can think
It's
about
not a
that.
raise, it's a salary adjustment. It really is.
What's the difference? You're getting 9% more money.
It's to
I've never
make-
seen such ridiculous
make the
wordsmithing.
position consistent with another position.
Well, you might want to justify anything you want, but it's a 9% pay increase.
Could you call this question already?
I
Overdoing is getting
I already
ill-will
have
going
many
on there.
times.
It's not ill. Some people have strong
We have an
views.
average of 4.45% increase. It's on the floor still. Can we finish this vote on it? And that's what we're talking about on an aggregate basis. C-44. It's been moved and seconded. It's been amended, so it got to be 4.45% on an average across the board. Can I get a roll call vote on that one?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
No.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Nope.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
And that motion carries.
Okay. We've directed the administration to modify this table so it reflects an aggregate increase of 4.45%. I'm sorry for the painful process, but when you move something, you then amend it, you have to go through the amendment process.
Well, I'm
We
going
have
to,
C21.
I'm just going to go to the other side of the
We'll be
cafeteria for
here
a
when
little
you
while.
get back. We can note that you've
Bring back a
left
Snapple
the
for
theater.
20 cents.
You get a Snapple for 20 cents? Is that what
Yeah,
you
well,
said?
that's they told me they could set it, right? Maybe they set it.
C21 now.
Second C21.
4.45.
That was your question.
That was my question.
C21 has been moved. Can I get a second on C21?
Yes, I did that.
Okay,
Rob
C21
wants
has
to
been moved and
discuss it.
seconded. Do I have any discussion on C21?
Yes. Here's my question about this, Brandon. Is there any way, you know, I would prefer, you know, paying someone in the history department who you deem, you know, supervisory material an extra $25,000 a year to be an interim supervisor as well, or Tom DeGansey, someone. I mean, I understand the need for the position ultimately. I just think, you know, to say we're saving on health benefits, or to say that's absolutely true, but, you know, could we see if we could get by with, you know, appointing another faculty member, or Tom, or Beverly, I don't know, you know, who could do the function, maybe not as well as a full-time person, but in a credible, competent way, and therefore we could save, you know, $75,000.
You're asking me? My
Yep.
recommendation is what is on the
Okay.
agenda.
C21 has been moved and seconded. Did you have any other questions? Comments? Discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Ms. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
No.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. We have to move on to the Ds. We have D1 through D11 that are on the original agenda, and then we have D12 and D13 that are on the walk-in items.
Was D3? I'm just saying, was D3 part of the sale leaseback in the budget?
You can ask that after we move it, okay?
Okay.
Please, I want
Was?
to get some
Stick
order.
with the
What you
Robert's
want.
rules.
Yeah, unless you want, does anybody have any of those, the D1 through D13, they want to have pulled for separate voting?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Hearing none, can I get a...
Well, D3. I mean, I just wanted to ask him a quick question.
You can ask it at a time.
When?
You can ask it when we've moved and seconded,
Okay.
okay? We can't, we gotta
Fine.
run by
Fine,
some order here.
Fine.
And can I get a motion on D1 through D13 then?
So move. Second.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Rob,
Yes.
you had a question?
Is this the sale leaseback from the budget?
Yeah, 3 items: the Dell computers,
Well,
the laptops, and the
The tables
cafeteria
were just
tables.
operating expense?
No, the tables are also in the sale leaseback.
So what isn't in it?
The desktop and laptop extended warranty is in.
Oh, the
operating
31,000?
budget.
That's operating expense? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I also have a question on this. Well, what does it mean using state contract pricing?
The state of New Jersey has their own cooperative bidding system that we as a school district are allowed to use in lieu of bidding. A lot of times with technical equipment like computers, we do rely on state contract. That state contract is technically a bid that the state does. And I have to put it through to the board for approval per state law, that whenever we exceed the bid threshold, which all of these do, that the board has to formally approve those, even though we're buying it via state contract.
Eric, the theory is that when the state goes to Dell Computer and say, give us your best shot, that Dell Computer knows that tens of thousands of laptops are Hewlett-Packard being purchased, so therefore they're giving you an exceptionally good price because they know that it doesn't have to go out to bid, and therefore the theory goes that you're getting a better price.
Just a
Pete,
general question.
Go.
If someone were to come in with a bid under state contract, we could accept that bid?
If somewhere,
No, you have to go out to bid.
No.
yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand. If there was a product, you can use state contract in lieu of any bid.
Right. Usually,
Yes.
it's lower than the price by going out. So you
Yes.
don't have to.
So you don't bid it.
You don't have
You
to
don't
bid,
bid it, but you go state contract, and you don't have to get the 3 quotes and all of that nonsense.
That's correct.
Okay. But if someone were to say to you,
Hypothetically,
I can provide this product for 25% less than the state contract number, we could do that?
Yeah, but you don't know that till you bid it, Peter.
we're not obligated to use
No,
the
that's-
state contract, is that right?
No, but that's a good question. There is a provision in the law that if you're, and I don't think it's 25%.
Whatever the number
Yeah, I
is.
think it's like 20. But if you're under 20% of the state contract on that product, then the board can approve that.
Okay,
Hard to do, though. I've done it before, but it's hard to do. You can do that.
okay.
How would you know that?
It's got to be a state contract item.
No, I understand. You have, okay,
It would have to be somebody that would come
In other words,
so if you see in the state contract a Dell computer XYZ model $1,000, and you see Staples advertising XYZ model for
Right.
20% less,
Yes.
then you could go to Staples without going through the bid and buying it there.
Right. It's a process, too. I got to get board approval. But I could do that. Just like, I don't have to get quotes, I don't have to get bids, none of that.
It's got to be the exact same.
Yes. Apples to apples.
Okay.
I had some questions that I had given on bills in here, or checks rather, and just to point them out again. There was one that said IDA Part B return of fund, and I guess there's an audit that's done and we had to return some IDA money.
Right.
The questioning the lawyers and whether we're following the new regulations, and Tim pointed out that their policy has to be adopted on that. There was another item on 81118, and which is, I guess, Dr. Rader and some mileage reimbursement, and I guess the answer to that was part of his contract as to his permitted expenses, so he gets to charge us mileage. There was another one on reduction of state aid on two bills or checks that are here, and the answer was state automatically reduced our aid for repayment of non-public aid and tuition to regional special services schools in lieu of paying tuition directly to them. So we had to reimburse money again for that.
Yeah, they just don't give us the aid, they just take it away from us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's,
We cannot have a roll call vote on this
No.
at this point in time
We don't have a quorum.
until we have our quorum.
Two of your members have
We've
left.
had 2 people who have left the meeting. We're down to 5. We don't have a quorum anymore. So I will go see if I can find one member to encourage them to return so we can then have a vote on items D1 to D13.
Is there any other business we can take care of?
Not on God.
We're like rats leaving the sinking ship. We should adjourn this meeting very quickly because it's not raining right now.
good point.
It's been rain through the night. You have to drive up to Connecticut in the morning? No.
Keep in mind the tape is rolling.
And anyone who's flying tomorrow is also.
Sorry, there was a required break here. So Rob will be here. We have moved D1 through D13. Is there any other discussion on these items?
One more question.
Yes, Eric.
For the D3, the reason I was asking this is state contract pricing is really, I still feel this, especially the desktop, is a little bit pricey. So in terms of this, what we have here is really the hardware plus software, or just hardware only?
No, that's the computers loaded with software.
So that's everything?
Who makes the decision what we should have in the computer, what shouldn't be in the computer?
That would be our technology, I don't know if it's director or
They're
supervisor.
going to have a standard build that they're going to expect the computer to come with. that will fit into this network environment here and provide the necessary tools at the desktop level. Then beyond that, other software be loaded in, like they do in AutoCAD here and things like that.
Listen, I know
there's a standard that they probably have a list.
I know we got to vote on this thing, but I think the point, I think maybe a little bit to what Eric's getting also, and I'm not saying it is with these. Is this gold-plated, or is this, an adequate, very good model, but not the gold-plated that would be sufficient for 98% of the student functionalities? Is that what you're getting at a little bit?
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we say that we'll go ahead and vote on this as it is, and we'll come back with a list of what's in the standard bill.
Listen, I don't know. Listen, I don't know anything about this stuff. I mean, I don't know. See, Dell Computer, it's $1,000 a laptop. I mean, and I know when you see Dell Computer, or Hewlett Packard selling for $600, there's differences, and maybe the $600 one is no good for us. Maybe it doesn't have whatever they need. But then again, if the $800 one would do, you just save $25,000. So maybe someone could ask this question do we really need this stuff?
Do you want to vote on this one tonight, or do you want to?
No. Well, let me.
Do you want to amend this? Or?
Well, no. Let me go back and explain how the process works. The board in the lease purchase identified an amount of money available for the computers, the laptops and desktops, and we go back to our supervisor of technology, and he's given that amount of money, and he knows what the need is and what the type of computers that are needed for the school. Now, he's identified, and these are, the desktops are 3 gigahertz, again, OptiPlex 750, I don't know if it's going to help anybody, but small form factor, Energy Smart.
Means nothing.
Yeah.
To maybe except Paul and Eric. I don't know. It's fair to say that means nothing to you?
Now
it means nothing to me?
I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah.
He finds these prices through using a state contract vendor. Now, I'll encourage a state contract vendor, especially with computers, because of the complexity of what you get. Bidding a computer often concerns me only because, and this is just from history, you're contending with a low bid, whereas when you're using state contract, it's multiple awards on a vendor. Now, Dell happens to be a reputable vendor. I think we could personally all attest to something like that, unless you had a bad experience with Dell. But something like laptops and desktops, I don't necessarily know. You got to be careful with the pricing piece.
That's not the. It's not the. Everyone knows Dell's good. Dell probably has 90% of all the government business. universities, government. Everyone knows Dell is top line. The issue is, do we need? Maybe the answer is yes. Do we need to be spending for a laptop $1,000 a laptop, and it looks like $1,100, or I don't know, whatever it is, $1,100 for computers? I mean, is that the optimum configuration for our needs, or is it, beyond what our needs are? It's nice. It's nice to have it. I mean, I'd like to have, do you need a 60-inch, plasma screen, or would a 42-inch do? Those are the questions that someone needs to ask. And when you say, well, our guy, the technology guy, and maybe he's a great, smart guy, I'm not saying he's not, when you give him a budget of, $300,000, he'll spend the budget and, go into the various laptops and this and adding features that adds up to the budget.
Rob, what would you like them to provide you that would give you that assurance?
It's not even, what? I don't know whether 2 gigahertz or 3. It's not my thing.
Now, I'm going to assume that they've evaluated this so that they can get the right dollar, that they can get the right hardware and software that they need at this price, and that's what I'm going to assume. That I'm assuming they've done that homework. If you want to, we can ask them the question, and we can pull this off so they don't buy these right now, which means they won't have them in the fall either. But we can do that if you want to. But I can't. I don't want to just keep discussing it at this point in time.
I'm just asking a question. It's not my expertise.
Neither mine. I want to change the motion though, either to say I will not approve that, and let's pull it, and then we can adjust this, or let's go ahead and vote on this the way it is.
Or, I mean, or same thing to say, is there a less expensive Dell laptop or Dell computer
can't
that
make
will
that
meet
change
your
now.
needs?
We can
That's
give them
tabling
that.
the motion. I understand that.
We can amend it. We can direct them to say, go find a better
How
computer.
okay,
for us
here's
to
my
work
question,
with.
Tim. So, how much lead time do you need to get these computers in by, September 1st, or whatever date?
I don't know specifically, Rob. I will tell you in my experience that generally the computers haven't been too bad, although there are an awful lot of schools that are making this type of order now. So that lessens our
They have
chance.
to be all connected in.
Bernie, the question would
That's the bigger
D3.
issue, is the prep of the computers,
Eric
getting
still
them
brought up and I
ready,
raised.
considering we have a small staff.
These are $1,000 each. Are these the models? Is there a less expensive model that would meet our needs, or this is perfectly sized and it is what it is? That's the issue. I'm not. We're talking about the computers. That's the question. Do you know enough to say whether it meets our needs, exceeds our needs,
There's
it's
no way you
gold plated
can
or
know
not?
that.
That's
There's no
the
way
issue we're
you
trying
can't.
to talk about.
But I'm gonna
There's no
defend
model
Bernie.
number here.
Pardon?
The model numbers are not specified.
There's no way for him to know that because there's no way to
No,
understand.
that's the question.
specification.
I'm not saying even if Bernie's invented the computer, he can't look at this and
Here's
say it's right sized or not right
I'm
sized.
going to take this to the simplest level I can right now. The question is, we have a motion in front of us, which is D3. Does somebody want to make a motion to amend that at this time?
Yes.
Then what's your motion to amend it?
No, I think my motion would be to table it and to the next meeting for the technology guy to report back why these, assuming they're the same models. I don't know. I can't tell, but because it doesn't have a model. Why these are the right size?
You have moved and said you have a move. I'm sorry. You've made a motion that we table this motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded.
My question would be.
Can I get a vote on
Yeah.
that?
We
Can we have a
discuss it.
discussion? We can discuss it. I'm
My
sorry.
concern would be, considering now we're towards the end of July and the next meeting's in August, towards the end of August, how much time would they then have to actually get them in and configure the machines to actually be productive in September?
It would
Now,
put a lot
that's-
of pressure on them.
It couldn't be done.
Yeah, I don't have enough people here. It would put a lot of pressure on them to do
It
that.
couldn't be done.
Could we live with half the units now and half in January?
We don't know
Because
which
we're
units, but I don't even know anything about
replacing
this.
units that are not functional.
Well, I mean,
Is that true?
If you take out, you're just they're not gonna get the technology. That's
Kids are not going to get the use of the computers, and
Yeah,
the teachers.
I mean,
are
you're
not.
gonna have what you have now.
Listen, you're asking us to prove just because it was in the budget, right? 250.
No, that's not what we're saying, Rob.
You're saying.
No, that's
you're
not
saying.
what we're
You're
saying.
saying.
No,
There's
wait a
some.
minute.
There's some
Rob.
jeopardy to the students unless we approve $250,000 of computers tonight.
No, there's no jeopardy to the students.
Well, that's what
no,
they
just
won't-
Fran
They won't
said.
have
They
them
just
to
these
use.
computers won't be able. They won't
They
be able.
won't be ready for
They won't
use
be
in
ready in
September.
September.
Well, I asked you a question. How much lead time? You said I don't think there's an issue with the lead time.
No.
If they were approved now, it would still be.
I don't
fine.
know.
When's the next meeting?
No. Hold on a second.
18th
I
of
don't.
August.
Yeah, I don't
There's
know.
nobody. They can't answer the question of what the lead
Yeah.
time requirements because they probably don't know how long it takes them to set up the computers on an individual basis, and they
Yeah.
don't know the workload because they're going through the building now and doing a lot of cleanup and renovation of the old computers that are here right now.
Right.
That's almost. There's probably not an answer to that question. We have in front of us a tabling of this motion D3. It has been moved and seconded, and we're at a point of discussion. Any other discussion on it?
I hope we're not harming our students. I'm
Well,
not a
it's only
tech
been
person,
moved
but
and seconded. So you hope we're not going to harm the students if we approve this.
if we approve this and we wait until August and the kids will come to school and they will not have the technology that I would like to see them have.
Okay, I'm going to call this motion. Can I get a roll call vote on the tabling of D3?
Yeah. Mr. Binder,
No.
Mr. Falzerano,
No.
Mrs. Feckner,
No?
Mr. Horwitz,
Yes.
Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett,
Yes.
and Dr. Seelig.
No.
And that motion is denied.
All right, we now have in front of us D1 through D13, unless somebody has another motion that they want to make at this point in time. Or a question on any of the D1 through D13. D1 through, Bernie, because you're kind of coming, D1 through the D13 have been moved and seconded. Okay, so we're in a discussion mode on D1 through D13. you have a discussion?
I guess the only question would be that 250 computers is a lot to digest in a month. Can you have a process whereby that would be spread out a little bit more and probably get lower prices? Prices go down 20% a year. Do we have to do them all in August or September is my question.
That's also my suggestion when we look into the budget. Say, do we really say by end of this 2007-2008, 223 computer dead already? So that's why we have to do the replacement during the summer as soon as possible, like the tire.
Pretty sure, Eric,
are they dead?
I'm pretty sure what they're doing is a 5-year rotation. It's on approximately a 5-year rotation basis, at which time at the end of 5 years, the oldest machines are moved out, and these are then the replacements for that.
So how many are dead?
So the assumption is they're like usable for, well, most of the time, as you know, the 5 years is about the limit anyway because of software rotation and the ability to support the newer releases of software. So that's
But does it have to be all in 1 month, or could it be
I'm just
distributed?
explaining. I think that's probably the logic that went into. But it sounds to me like what this board would like is a review of the technology program and purchasing plan.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest that we have that at the next meeting. Okay.
And I'd like to say two things. One is, maybe they can make sure that it's the right configuration to double check the board's concerns. But I'm also concerned that, this could have been raised with questions ahead of time at the administration.
That's
This
another
should not
topic.
have been talked about for half an hour at this meeting. I mean, I'm sorry. I put my question to the administration on all the items I saw on the agenda that I had concerns about.
It's another topic. I just want to get through this agenda.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to
Rob,
answer. No, just because
Rob,
you
there's
say
no need to comment.
Well, but me saying
I
the truth,
call the vote
it's
on
an attack
D1
on
through
me.
You could have had the
D13.
answers
It's
to
not
the
an attack on
questions
you.
that we could
I
have
call
made
the
a
vote.
decision.
I didn't see this till this morning, Jerry.
Take
Tim.
a roll.
Call the vote.
Mr. Binder,
Mr. Binder.
you call. Say
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Falzarano?
I'm in favor of the motion to buy the computers.
We're voting on D1 through D13.
Okay, yes. So just so that there's no misunderstanding in what I'm voting for. Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
I'm voting no because it hasn't been shown to me that $250,000 of computer expenses is being well spent.
We're voting no on D1 through D13.
Correct.
Mr. Sun?
There's no way of just voting on D3, so we have to vote.
You're going to
The
vote
group.
no on the whole thing because it was
So
not
you made a
pulled to be
motion.
voted on separately.
Mr. Sun?
No.
Dr. Yagat?
No.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
I got to take a quick look at this.
Did we pass or did we not pass?
Well,
Oh, is that
it's
what
each of the. I have to look at each one of these.
Do we have a requirement that we get
That's what I'm looking at.
He's checking it.
by the full board?
On money, don't you need to say,
Jerry, what'd you vote? Yes.
The vote was 4-3.
Yes.
I'm
You need a
I'm
simple
not sure.
majority in anything.
That's why I don't know. It's on all 13.
Is the majority of the quorum?
Which one?
I think D10 might be a problem.
Some items need simple majority.
Yeah, but, and I know some of them, but what in this one?
Um,
That's what he's
Can I make a comment on this?
Yeah.
I probably should have made this before the vote.
Vote D10 separately.
I think you really ought to take a look at what you voted on.
We're going to vote D10 separately. Let them vote that.
I
Well,
think
finish your
because
comment,
if
Tim.
because first of all, I think I'm going to draw your attention to D11. I want to
Oh, yeah.
make sure the folks who voted no on that understand what they voted no for.
Yeah. You may
I
want
had
to.
no choice.
You may. Well, you can always separate the motion.
After we vote that down, then we have to maybe make the motion again individually.
I don't want to complicate things, but I'm just telling
What,
folks that you voted
what's
no.
the rule count on this vote?
What do you?
It's 4-3.
No, that
I have to
we
take
know,
a
I know
look
it's
at-
4-3. Do you need a major? Do you need a majority? Do you need 6? Do you need 6 affirmative votes?
On certain ones.
Well, that's what we're asking.
That's
Can I
what I
make a
got to look
suggestion?
at,
Can I
Rob.
just make a suggestion? Because D3 caused all the angst.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that we've moved and seconded and voted on D1 through D13, right? But I'm going to suggest, and I don't know how to do this by Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, me neither.
But I'm going to suggest that I would move. I'll tell you what. So I think what we want to do is make a motion that we
Separates.
suspend the last vote. We take the last vote and we then separate out D3 and treat it separately. Can we do that?
I think we should.
Can
honestly.
I get a motion that we take the last vote and set it aside? I've never done this before, so this is like a
Yeah.
new.
Sure.
I've got a motion
I'll second.
and second. Can I get a roll call vote on the fact that we are? The hell are we doing? What are we doing? We're taking. We're suspending D1 through the vote on D1 through D13.
Kind of rescinding.
We're rescinding the vote on D. We're going to rescind the vote on D1 through D13. That's what we're doing.
We're taking a moment.
Can I get a roll call vote on that?
Mr. Binder? Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Fechner? Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I get a motion on D1 through D13 except for D3?
So moved.
Second.
D1 through D13, absent D3, have been moved and seconded. Can I get any discussion on that? Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Can I get a motion on D3?
Move D3.
Can I get a second on D3?
Second.
D3 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on D3? I would like to add that the board would like to have a review of the technology purchasing plan to be discussed at the next meeting on August whatever.
Are you saying table till next meeting?
No, I'm not saying table. I just want I want to be part of the discussion of this, that request is being made, which is going to tell us then the specifications for the equipment,
Just one caveat.
as well as then the time frame and strategy for the purchasing.
With one caveat, I don't know the availability of the Director of Science and Technology. He could be on vacation at the time of the next meeting, so
Okay.
it may have to wait till the
Or how
September.
about a written, I mean, you could put it in writing as well.
Well, I think it's better if he presents it.
I would rather him here so
I
we
would
could
agree.
I
ask
think the
questions.
September, whatever the first meeting in
This
September
board has
is.
never been satisfied with written material. Okay, can I get then a roll call vote
D3.
on D3 as written?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
No.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
No.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries on that.
Okay. We're almost done. Do we have any other business?
What's the rule on that?
That's a majority of the board that is present. No supermajority on state contracts.
Your question is whether it carried it. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, I said motion carried on that one.
Okay.
We still need executive session.
We have a very short executive session. Do we have any other business? Second opportunity for public to comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to executive session. Can I get a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we're in executive session. Let's kill the mics and the camera. Hold on. We're in executive session for confidential matters that are governed by attorney-client privilege. It is expected that matters, and is there any action that we're going to take after this?
Yes, there may be.
And there may be action taken after this executive session. With that, we'll move into executive. I put a mark on the tape, so we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that.
That's the missing tape from where we rescinded the vote.
No, that happened. I think we're back in public session. Can I get a motion on C44 and C?
I don't think he has, who put us back in public. You need a motion and a second on that one.
I'm confused. It's Jerry and you.
Okay, that's always good. That's why we sit this way.
Sorry, Jerry.
We're back in public session. It's been moved and seconded.
I move C45 and C46.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion on C45 and C46? Can I get a roll call vote?
Yeah, let me catch up. Okay, Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries. Motion
Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Jerry, go for it.
I did.
Oh, okay.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? I don't think it has to be actually seconded.